But also, one of the guys out there, Mark Andreessen, has made some comment about people shouldn't be so afraid of AI taking all their jobs. Well, I can understand why some are concerned, but I want to ask the question tonight, is the hype, some of it, over, exaggerated? Some people will lose their jobs, no doubt about it. But can the free market repair itself with the advancement of technology, as it has done for an awfully long time when new technology emerged, like washing machines and other things? I will explain with Patrick Wood tonight. Then we're going to be joined by Jason Pratt. I pre-recorded an interview with Jason this afternoon because he has other responsibilities tonight. But I want to talk to him about the Artemis 2 mission. By now, it has come back to Earth. And I want to talk with him, though, about what they did to get ready for the reentry. I want to talk about some of the pictures that have come from the mission. I want to talk about images from past NASA expeditions, like some of the Apollo missions where they actually landed a lunar module on the moon. The other night, I asked him, do we not have any pictures of those? Can we not get a satellite or a telescope or this mission to take pictures of where those various lunar modules set down on the moon to prove to people that we were really there? Well, wait till you see what we have for you tonight. Here's a little tease. We're going to get into some of the pictures that have come back, and as well as some of the video footage tonight with Jason Pratt. All right. Now, I do have some video to show you. We're still finding, I don't know how we keep finding all these family videos, but we're finding not only family videos. Logan called me today and he said, there's a documentary you hosted. You're really young. This was a long time ago. And he said, it's called The Battle for the Mind. I said, I vaguely remember it. And he named all the people that are in it. And I said, yeah, I didn't remember all those people were in it. I don't know where this video has been the whole time, but he found a DVD, I guess. And he ripped it today. It's going into the vault. And soon you guys will have access to some of this stuff. But in the process, I also found some more family videos and DVDs. And Logan, you want to come grab this call for me real quick, please? Logan, grab that, take the care of that. But I found some family DVDs, and he ripped some of it for me, and we are going to play a few of those, one of them for you tonight. Some water skiing. I've been wanting to show Logan this video for a long time, a DVD of his dad, water skiing, but we just never had time to rip it. So he did today, along with other stuff, and we were watching it. I said, hey, let's show this to the audience. It's kind of fun, because we got a big response last night from a lot of you that liked the home videos. I knew you guys would. They're fun. I think they're fun. And you're going to see more of little Logan on the ski boat. All right, so we'll do that. Now, before we have a little fun, we have to have work. Work before reward, right? Work before reward. Now, I saw a video today that is so very troubling. This has to do, I think this was down in Florida. I reported on it on the Worldview Report last night. This Haitian guy that killed this woman. He did not know her. She did not know him. And he killed her with a hammer. You may want to look away. It's disturbing. But I want to show this to you guys, again, as a warning for you to warn your family members, warn your friends, warn your daughters, warn your buddy and his wife, or your friend and her husband. I don't care if you're a guy. When someone is jacked up on drugs, and I don't know if that was the case here, or psychotic, clearly the case here, I think, demonic, possibly the case here, you don't want to fool with these people. There's many reasons you don't want to fool with them. Sometimes they have really superhuman strength. Number one, certainly the women shouldn't be fooling around with them, because some of these people are too strong for even men. The other thing you need to understand too is, even if you are in the right and you have to take a life or fire your weapon, It's going to be a nightmare. It is going to be an absolute nightmare in most cases. Sometimes it's pretty cut and dry. The video's there, the police see it, it's self-defense, boom. But that's not always the case. Sometimes, depending on where you're at, the county you live in, it could be a real legal obstacle. And then there's the potential for civil litigation. So you never want to get yourself entangled in something that you don't have to. You don't confront people. This is why you call 911 and you let the people that are paid to deal with it, let them deal with it. You keep yourself and your family members free. That's my opinion to you. Take it for what it's worth. But I guess, this woman saw her car looked like smashed by a hammer and went out and confronted him. No, you don't do that. You stay in the store and you call 911. This is very disturbing, but again, it's also why people should be armed, why I believe, again, we've got to get these illegals out of our country. Watch this disturbing video. Now you can see in the far corner, there he is, just going to town on her car with a hammer. Apparently he's trying to break into it, get some money. I don't know. Who knows? I think this guy's obviously got demonic, spiritual, or psychological problems. Now, why on earth would she confront him? Why would she do that? Now, Logan, she's not wearing a hijab, is she? She might be wearing a hijab. I'm just seeing that for the first time. I mean, that is just, I'm sorry to show it, but I want you guys to see how dangerous it is out there. If you don't know, bring it back to reality if you've gotten a little desensitized. Why is that not all over the press? Was she a Muslim? What was that all about? Doesn't matter one way or the other. It's still murder. It's wrong. It's horrific. That looks like a hijab. She's from Bangladesh, according to what Coast News? Gulf Coast News. There is also a video I showed today. I won't show it tonight. I showed it today on radio/television. The Christians being murdered in Nigeria. Just these Islamist jihadists are literally crushing the skulls of men wide open, beating them to death while they sit on the ground. They're tied, tied up, can't defend themselves, and they're beating them with clubs until literally their heads explode, murdering them. Why? Because they're Islamist and these are Christians. Have you noticed how silent much of the world is? Very disturbing video too. I won't show that again tonight. I showed it for radio and TV today. Very disturbing. Now I want to show you a video that goes to the issue of warning our kids and grandkids. We have talked many times about these gummy bears, or I don't even want to use that word because that might be a brand name. These little candies. What are they called, Logan? Edibles? But they look like gummy bears or something, right? They look like candies. And some of this stuff is sold in the gas stations, as we've talked about. And it's THC, right, Logan? Oh, I came across a video today. I want to show you what this doctor is warning about, this ER doctor. And you're going to see a 9-year-old boy. Apparently he was given a vape and edibles by someone at school. Ate all of it thinking it was gummies. Can I just tell you again, folks, a little public service education announcement here. Train your kids not to eat candy from anybody unless it is a very, very trusted family member, someone that's an adult, obviously their parents, you, the grandparents. But other than that, they need to be very, very, very well trained not to just eat candy that people give them. Because some of these kids think it's funny to give some of their friends gummies or candies. They're not the gummies as in the trademark group, but these gummy candies that are THC. You can die from this. There can be lasting, lifelong consequences. Some people that have had this, taken these willingly or had them pushed onto them, they end up dealing with anxiety and psychotic problems or psychiatric issues the rest of their life, I'm told. This is not a joke. And again, it's up to us to train our kids and our grandkids. I mean, my kids are all grown, but I sent all of them a video and said, this is very serious. Be very careful. Because we're not living in the 1950s. That's for sure. Not even the 1980s. Watch this video. Very disturbing. This 9-year-old boy having a reaction in the emergency room.
Junior, do you want to lay back?
This is what full-blown THC psychosis looked like in a 9-year-old. So I had a full adult a couple of weeks ago who took 600 milligrams of gummies. And my understanding is this kid was given 2,000 milligrams. Extreme panic, extreme anxiety. Brain is just absolutely overwhelmed. He is hearing and seeing things that are not real, and he is acting upon them. He is physically seeing and hearing things that are not in existence. And in his mind, he is there.
Now, let me just stop right there.
The attacker.
Can I? Yeah. Now, is he seeing things that are not really there? I don't know. The mind can play tricks. But when you do take drugs, you can have an altered state of consciousness. And the New Agers and the occultists admit, and I've been saying this since my first book on the New Age movement since 1990, they will tell you that the most popular way to meet a spirit or master guide that they think is an individual more highly evolved through the process of reincarnation, it's really a demon. They think they say the most popular way to meet a spirit or master guide is through drugs or hypnosis that brings an altered state of consciousness. So I don't know if he was really seeing something or his mind was hallucinating something that wasn't really there. But I don't doubt the probability and the possibility because of seeing real things, demonic entities and things, because the occultists tell us these are popular ways to meet spirit or master guides that I know are demons. They're not individuals more highly evolved through the process of reincarnation. It's appointed unto every man to die once and then face the judgment. So, then you have the issue of what it's doing to the heart.
Cardia, big issue. Super fast heart rates makes you vulnerable for other types of electrical focuses coming in and disrupting your heart, giving you a heart attack or putting you into arrhythmia that is not compatible with living. Seizures, he could go into seizures easily. This kid is a ICU level care patient. The THC stays in your system. And the other issue is the edibles are slow released. So they release over time. They'll be fighting with this mania for at least 18 to 24 hours, maybe even 30 hours. He'll be in the hospital for some days. Absolutely traumatized. A near miss event. And here's the bigger issue, is this stuff is sold in local gas stations. You can go into any gas station in urban neighborhoods and find this type of material sold over the counter. That easy of access to get to our children. So as parents, we've got to be protective of our children, whoever we need to talk to. County legislation, zoning commission, somebody we need to talk to and tell them this is unacceptable in our neighborhoods and we have to protect our children.
Yep. So there you go. We're doing our part. We're trying to alert folks out there because maybe some of you don't know, you don't maybe see some of this stuff out there and maybe you don't know about this stuff. And it just breaks my heart that this little 9-year-old boy had that done to him. And we could pray that, and we should pray that he recovers and that he doesn't have any life-altering consequences, that it doesn't impact him and his health mentally or psychologically or spiritually for the rest of his life. Take a look at this. Apparently, Tucker Carlson's group is now offering up low IQ hats. President Trump called a bunch of them yesterday in a Twitter or social media post. Low IQ. Apparently, they're now going to make it into hats. I don't know. Do you really think people are going to buy these hats and walk around with a hat that says low IQ on it? If you do, then you probably are low IQ, right, Logan? I mean, if you buy one of these hats, I'm not saying you, this audience. If someone were to buy this hat, walk around with it in protest, they really are low IQ because they're clearly owning it. But then again, I've met a lot of the people inside this world that would follow people like Tucker and Candace and Alex Jones. And I think some of them are definitely low IQ. Wouldn't you say that, Logan? I would say a lot of them are low IQ. They don't seem to want to think and use reason and logic and context. I think a lot of them are low IQ. So if the hat fits, wear it. How about that? But now they're going to sell low IQ hats. All right, well, good for them. Good luck. Speaking of some of these people, here is Candace. What is her name? Not Candace. Perrine. What's her first name? Carrie. That's right. Carrie Prejean. All right. Here's what she had to say, I guess, in 2026, February and April 2026. Milk Bar TV put this out. Listen to this.
If I don't support the political ideology of Zionism, it is a political movement. It's not hatred of Jewish people. They want to marry the two so that if you do criticize the nation of Israel, they would love nothing more than to label you anti-Semitic. And I reject that. I reject that from the Zionist supremacists because that's exactly what they are. And they hijacked that Religious Liberty Commission.
A lot of people say Zionists, and I understand, but I really believe that it's a Jewish supremacy issue.
I agree with you. I think there is a Jewish supremacist problem, and it's the Jewish supremacists that are trying to pin us against them. It's like the us versus them.
Wow. Wait a minute. If that is a real video and that has not been edited, so now we're going to go from saying, well, we believe in a Zionist supremacy. Now it's a Jewish supremacy. I think you're going to start seeing more and more of these people become more and more bold in what they really believe. I think some of them are going to stop masking what they really believe and just start telling you. So just be ready for it. But if that is really a real clip, and I believe it probably is because the group that put it out, I've seen them do some stuff. The guy behind it is what his title is, a filmmaker, right, Logan? Puts a lot of stuff out. Freelance filmmaker, video editor, totally deranged human being, Candace Owens. So he actually says that Trump is absolutely correct to label Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens low IQ. So that's very troubling that she's now saying that for that clip, and we'll keep you posted on that, what else we find out. We are seeing from this survey, YouGov, apparently new polling shows Tucker Carlson's favorability has been in free fall, with only 36% of Republicans having a favorable view of him. That's good news, right, Logan? I'm a little shocked by that. Are you? Yeah, I thought, I'd love to know what the age demographic of that was, wouldn't you? Because that would tell us a lot.
But then again, a lot of his supporters...
Oh, wait a minute. We have it in there, Logan.
A lot of his supporters probably wouldn't even label as Republicans anymore.
Oh, yeah. A lot of his supporters wouldn't even call themselves Republican. That's a good point, Logan. Well, there is the age breakdown because the age breakdown is so important. Because a lot of the young people today, they're all good with the whole anti-Semitism, aren't they, Logan? All right, let's see what else we got, Logan. Okay, I've shown that. I don't want to see that again. That's disturbing. All right, let's see. I left anything out? Showed that. I'll close that one. I think that's it. I showed that one. Close that one out. Yeah, I think we got it all. All right. Now, you ready to have some fun? A little recess? So I said, Logan, let's play the video, the skiing video. You're going to get to see my beautiful lab, my second lab, Summer. She's in this video. She was shaved. I shave all my labs so they don't shed too much because Melissa doesn't like them shedding all over the house. And they seem to like it, particularly here in Tennessee. They're cooler. So she's shaved, if some of you are wondering why she looked the way she does, because she just got a haircut. But this is my second yellow lab, Summer, who passed away, I think, in August of 2011 is when she passed away. You'll see her on the boat as we're skiing with some of my friends from Tennessee here. You ready, Logan? I can add some commentary. Okay, let her rip. There's Summer. Now that's me, right, Logan? Because a while ago, Dave was skiing. That's Dave's voice. Dave's driving.
There he goes.
Look at that rooster tail. All right, I guess I'm just warming up because normally I'd go back and forth. So maybe I'm just warming up. Now, any of you guys that slalom ski, you know what's going on here. Those that don't, I guess they can't really appreciate all the muscles that are being used. It's very taxing. Anyone that's done it. Now look, it's getting darker. Dolly. Summer's having a good time there, isn't she? Notice how she, I guess that rope goes over her head. I think at one point she's kind of going back and forth. Look, there she goes to that side of the boat. Now let's go to that side of the boat. I don't know if she was worried about me, but she always did that. We were up in that cove because it was smooth water, and we were waiting for nighttime, things to settle down, so you get some smooth water for slalom. Look at that. I wish I could do that today. So now some of the guys in the control room today asked if I could still do that. No, I don't think so, with a herniated disc in C6 and C7 and multiple herniated disc in the back at some point. No, I probably couldn't do that today. I'm not physically fit enough to do that today. Who said we are? Really? Can you do that, Thomas? You could. Do you slalom, Tommy? Yeah. I just asked him, do you slalom? And he said, what does that mean? So you do ski on one ski? Oh, you used to. All right. Well, you get up on one ski or you drop? You get up or drop? Yeah, good for you. Well, I'm going to have to take you out. Logan's going to have to get like that. Logan likes to wakeboard. We're going to have to stop that. Logan will slalom, but he's not slaloming like that. We're going to have to work on that, Logan. I know you haven't skied much. We got you kids all like the wakeboard, but that was the kind of the thing at the time. Now look how much it's getting dark. Logan, I think at the end of that video, we were about to get pulled over by the water guys. They had the lights on, and we were headed up toward them. I think they were coming out to tell us it's too dark. I don't think I got a ticket because I would have remembered that. But they had their lights on as we approached them. We had finished. Someone must have called and complained. And we were tooling toward them. I don't think they gave us a ticket. I think they just said we were just waiting to see if you were going to keep going. But we knew when sunset was. Jeb, what did Jeb say when he saw this? Jeb? Jeb says he can't see me doing this. What does that mean, Jeb? Why are you waiting so long to answer, Jeb? How long ago was that, Logan? 2004? That was it. That was my last run right there. That was one of my last runs ever because I had a herniated disc after that. Look at, there's Logan. Well, thank you I appreciate that. But why do you say I can't see Brandon doing that, Mr. Brandon doing that?
What kind of skiing we're gonna have tonight, Brandon?
Slalom skiing, and this is nice water. So some nice stuff here. Get my rhythm down.
He says, I see you and sitting at the desk doing
Why did y'all
broadcasting.
get it so tangled up?
Not doing that. My wife says, yeah. I told my wife that today. Jab. She said, yeah, he thinks you just sit around and read books and research. I'm out of my prime. Of course I'm out of my prime, Thomas. I'm 57 this month. It's a state of mind, says Logan. Now you sound like your mother. But come on, I'm out of my prime. I guess I could try to get back into that kind of good shape. So not like I'm overweight or anything, but there are people my age still do it, but how many of you have a broken back and multiple herniated discs? Yeah, I'll just keep taking the Belamelts and I don't know. I don't know if I want to try it again. I'm tell you what, the older you get, you don't take many risks anymore. That's the problem. I don't know if that's the problem or is that comes with wisdom and age. It's like, do you want to blow out your knee? I don't think so. I did it when I was younger. It was a blast. Did you see Dolly watching the TV screen? She was hearing Summer barking. Look, I know guys that can do it like that are older than I am, but they didn't break their back. They don't have herniated discs. You know, I know Joe can still ski like that. And Joe has got to be, let's see. How old is Joe, Logan? No, not yet. He's about 12 years older than I am. So I think he's about 69. I hate to say it, he can ski like that still. I haven't seen him ski in a few years, but I have seen him ski a few years ago. He can still go. You remember, hey, look up the guy, Banana Joe, Logan. Talk about a guy that could do it in older age. I'm not old. People get mad at me when I say that. Have you not seen Banana Joe? What's the name of it? Banana Joe's also the name of a cartoon character? I thought it was Banana Joe. I have no internet out here again, guys. Stinking internet. Okay, I found it, Logan. Okay, 90. Oh, there's that barking too. 93. So I guess I don't have any room to say I can't still do it. Oh man, come on, really seriously?
Banana George. He's
Banana
been
George
for months with pneumonia and struggles with constant pain and stiffness from 6 major back surgeries.
Oh, wait a minute. He had 6 major back surgeries. Oh, now I seem like a real
neck. And all he wants.
Wait, what was wrong with his neck?
Major back surgeries and a broken neck.
And a broken neck? Now, if this dude goes out here and skis, I'm going to look really stupid.
And all he wants to do is barefoot water ski.
No. Barefoot?
Even though I've had every one of his doctors and family members call me and tell me this is not a good idea, I just, I'm going to keep him as safe as I can, and we're going to take him out there, and this is what he lives to do. And so I'm
all right. Banana George has had back surgeries and broke his neck, and he's about to barefoot. Okay.
I'm worried every time he goes out on the
water. I guess maybe I should get back out there and try again, Logan.
Nobody can stop him, so. Believe me, I tried.
Okay, wait a minute. Does Banana Joe's wife look like she's 93? I think Banana Joe robbed the wife. Robbed the cradle. What? Why do you find that so funny, Thomas? You've never heard that saying? No. Oh, good grief. I'm working with a bunch of kids that have no... He says he'd never heard the phrase robbing the cradle. Yeah, he robbed the cradle when he was 50. You've never heard that phrase, Thomas? You know how much you have learned since you came to work here? Oh. Okay, so there's his wife. She's got to be a good 30 years younger than him. How old he's 93. How old do you think she is? 70? Huh? In a 75? Maybe younger.
Nobody can stop him, so. Believe me, I tried 10 years ago. He's still out there.
George is helped into a special contraption and his feet lowered onto the water. He barefoots for a second, spins and tumbles.
sure you're okay, Georgie?
I'm positive.
All right.
You're an animal, George.
That's what we keep telling him.
You are an animal.
I had his feet on the water, but because he was so light, he didn't have enough control to hold himself this way. And when he started to spin, his wrists are so sensitive that as soon as he gets spun a little bit, it hurts so badly he has to let go.
Why is he even out there trying
George
it at
is
93?
satisfied with the effort and says he plans on skiing a while longer.
Forever.
Before we leave, George wants us to see the sign in his kitchen that sums up his philosophy of life, even at 93. Do it.
All of life is up and down. I think I don't wait for the next thing, but I make the next thing happen. I'm not growing older. I am growing bolder. How do you like that?
Wow. All right, so I'm feeling a little puny right now. Banana George. Okay, Banana George was doing this, though, a long time. I want to find one when he was a little bit older. You got one, Logan, when he was younger, when he was younger. I didn't even know the guy was still doing that at 93, but I knew he was doing it in his 80s. Let's see. All right, here he is at 85. It's going to make me watch a commercial, I bet, first. And then we'll get with the program. 85. This is to inspire all of us, including myself.
It's
Here we go,
looked up
Logan.
to by all water sports enthusiasts. His name, Banana George, an 85-year-old barefoot skier who puts on one heck of a show.
85. Now that's barefooting there. Look at that.
We asked Banana George what his secret was to staying young and healthy.
Look at that.
Everybody knows that your body is most your valuable possession, but some people don't take care of their valuables. And when you stop to think that nothing else matters except your body, you got to be careful. You got to feed it good food, and you got to keep it moving. Be healthy with everything you do.
Oh, my word.
Everything you put in your mouth.
Banana George at 85. You never even heard of Banana George till tonight, had you guys?
Now, how cool is that? Banana George, truly an inspiration to us all to continue doing the things we love.
All right, there you go. All right. So I'm feeling kind of like I ought to maybe pump some iron, get my strength back to where it should be, and get ready to try slalom skiing again. What do you think? Now, if I get hurt and I'm off work for several months, you guys going to whine and complain if I run a bunch of reruns and you don't have any work? You're going to be all going, why did we let him go out there and do that? Why did we let the golden goose, the guy that, if Banana George can do it. Yeah. Well, there you go, Logan. You never know where this show's going to go because we don't know ourselves till we get started. It just happens, right? The inspiration is Banana George at 85. His slogan is just, what is his slogan? Do it. Do it. All right. Banana George. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Banana Patrick Wood. Don't go away. Wait, I haven't even plugged a product or anything, have I? We're going to go bankrupt and belly up if I don't plug product. Come on, guys. You're not going to have a paycheck next month. You better remind me to plug product and stuff. WorldviewTube.com/sponsors. WorldviewTube.com/sponsors. All the great products you've come to count on. I use that phytoplankton. I drink that every night with my dinner. It's one scoop's equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Dolly gets half a scoop every morning on her food. There's a pet product. You know the Bella Grace, 3 powerful ingredients. Of course, you got the Bella Melts. You've got, they also have several other new products. You can check them all out there as well. Get your free packet on gold so you can put gold into your IRA or take physical custody. WorldviewWater.net for the water filters that filter out the chemicals and the toxins. DollyFood.shop. Dolly loves her food, and she loves this 100% human grade, all natural food. happyhow.dollyfood.shop or worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I did see some orders come in for this, the Worldview Healthcare. Get your own medical kits and your own antibiotics. Have those on hand. So you are your own urgent care. Stream for Life. Swish for Life. Swish for Life. That is glutathione. If you want to get glutathione in your bloodstream, it's already there. It's decreasing as we get older. This, you swish it around your mouth for about 3 minutes and then spit it out or swallow it. Glutathione can detox your cells, helping to lead to decreasing mercury in your brain, thus decreasing potentially Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So there you go. All right. Oh, you know what, Logan? We got to send a link to Gordon Chang. I'm going to have Gordon Chang on, Logan. Send a quick link to Gordon, and we'll have Gordon on. We're going to have to bump Patrick back a little bit. Let's get Gordon Chang on here. Oh, I'm glad they just texted me. I would have forgot. I didn't write it down. I'm always kind of lecturing you about not writing things down. I didn't write that one down, Logan. Because I booked him later last night after I got off the air, and I frankly, I was laying down with ice packed around my neck, so I didn't have a pen and paper. Anywho, we'll have Gordon Chang here in just one moment. WorldviewTube.com/sponsors. And of course, don't forget about our foundation, WorldviewFoundation.com. I'll be back, Lord willing, Sunday night as I continue teaching through the book of Daniel. We're in Daniel chapter 3. Okay? All right, WorldviewTube.com/sponsors. Gordon Chang, then Patrick Wood, and then a pre-recorded interview with Jason Pratt on the Artemis 2. And some great images and pictures from the moon, including pictures of some of the Apollo lunar modules that are still there, which proves we went to the moon. All right, we'll be right back. Joining me now is Gordon G. Chang. Mr. Chang, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon.
Great having you back with us. Bump his volume a little in my ear, if you would, guys. All right, Taiwan. What is going on with Taiwan? I was hearing rumblings about something maybe related to China and Taiwan during all of this skirmish that's catching all of our attention with Iran. What's happening with Taiwan and China, please?
Yeah, the head of the main opposition party, the KMT, Kuomintang, she has gone to Beijing and she met with Xi Jinping a few hours ago. Her name is Cheng Li-wen. And she said that this is a mission of peace. I tend to think it's more a mission of appeasement. It gets a little bit complicated. The KMT is the Chinese party. In Taiwan, those who self-identify as Chinese only are about 3 or 4%, maybe 5% of the population. And this is consistent over self-identification surveys. Those who identify as Taiwanese only, somewhere between 67, 83, 84% of the population. And so she represents a politically powerful party, but one which has very close connections with the Communist Party. And so this is not a good story because Xi Jinping is trying to undermine the government of Taiwan right now. And it's using this visit by Ms. Cheng to do that.
Are they talking about any exercises around the island or anything? Are they showing any movement around the island again?
We've seen very little, especially over the last week or so. There's been maybe 1 or 2 incursions, but nothing of real note. The Taiwanese have chased the Chinese away. The thing that's important, and this is somewhat related to Taiwan, and that is in the East China Sea. Remember, Taiwan is at the intersection of the East China Sea and South China Sea. So it's the bottom of the East China Sea. In the East China Sea, China declared 5 no-go zones for 40 days, which is really unusual because they did not announce any military exercises. These zones are located both north and south of Shanghai. Now, we don't know exactly what's going on. When these were announced by Beijing, everyone sort of assumed it was Taiwan related. It could be, but these zones are closer to South Korea and Japan. But nonetheless, they're not that far from Taiwan, so they are relevant to what's going on. I think what China is trying to do is to close off permanently the East China Sea to others. And so it's declared with really, I think, very little justification, these big zones for such a long period of time, especially when they have not announced military exercises.
Now, if they do cut off that large area, how does that impact us when you also add in what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz? And if there were to be any more blocking of trade routes and waterways?
Yeah, that's really important. You put your finger on it. Strait of Hormuz and these no-go zones. If the United States has had any consistent foreign policy over the course of 250 years, it's been the defense of international water and airspace. And what the Iranians are doing now in the Strait and what the Chinese are doing in the East China Sea are basically impinging on the global commons. So this is unacceptable. Now, with regard to the Strait of Hormuz, it gets even worse because Tuesday, President Trump announced that 2-week ceasefire. And that condition for the ceasefire was for Iran to open up the strait. Well, Iran has not opened up the strait. It is still requiring ships to pay a toll in renminbi, the Chinese currency. And so this is an impingement on international water. The strait is international water. So this goes directly against our interests, even though we don't get very much through the strait for the United States. But nonetheless, this does affect the way that we view the world and the way that we have defended the global commons for 250 years.
And we have the Strait of Hormuz. And what's that other one called? The something another.
Al-Abab, and that's really the southern exit to the Red Sea as it empties into the Indian Ocean. Both the Strait of Hormuz and the one you mentioned, they empty out into the Indian Ocean. So they control basically all the hydrocarbons coming out of the Gulf because, this is, you either come out of the Strait of Hormuz or you come out of the Al-Abab. And there's just no way out otherwise. Eventually, I think Saudi Arabia will try to put together a route that ends up in the Mediterranean, but they don't have that now.
And we've seen the proposals where it looks like Israel and maybe IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, they're planning on maybe making a canal right from the Red Sea through the Gaza Strip and dumping out into the Mediterranean. Correct?
Yeah, but that's well beyond what we're talking about now. I mean, we're talking about
they could do right now to us.
Yeah, right now we've got to be worried about the Strait of Hormuz.
Is this an economic war as much as anything?
It certainly has economic consequences for the Iranian. For the Iranian regime. This is a matter of survival. So yeah, economics are certainly a part of that. For us, we have also, I think we have much more. It's also a matter of survival, though Americans don't understand that. And that's a long conversation. But President Trump's explanation to the American people about 10 days ago did not lay out why we have an interest in ending the Iranian regime. He just sort of said, well, they get nuclear weapons. And then in one sentence, he mentioned a long-range intercontinental ballistic missile. But there's a lot, I think, that President Trump could have said, first of all, to substantiate those really important points. But also, I think that President Trump underestimated, in his words, the threat to the United States. He could have said a lot more. So this is really important for us.
I absolutely agree with you. You and I haven't discussed this prior to going on the air here. And I've been telling our audience for some time, I think the president owes us more explanations of what are the threats to the country. Because, Dr. Price told us from this desk before he passed away that Iran likely had a nuclear weapon or more than one for probably the last 10 years or more. We know that they can, you talk about, well, then what about a delivery system? Well, I think they've got that. And of course, we know they've bragged and showed videos of launchers on cargo containers or on cargo ships. So they could get it to the Gulf of America off our coast and launch. So he should, I think, you're right, be explaining to us more, why is this an imminent threat? If they've had a nuclear weapon or more for 10 years, why the imminent threat now? And what else is this about? It's got to be about more than that. Do you believe?
Let me give you just chapter and verse on one thing. So let's talk about intercontinental ballistic missiles. President Trump mentioned that the Iranians would soon have an ICBM. After he said that, on the CNN commentary after his speech, Caitlin Collins said, the U.S. intelligence community does not agree with the president on that assessment. And by the way, she's right. The U.S. intel community doesn't agree with the president. But the U.S. intel community is wrong and President Trump is right. We know that since at least 2016, the Iranians have had what's called an 80-ton booster. This really is the first stage of North Korea's Hwasong-15, which is an ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile, that has a range of 1,800 miles. If launched from Iranian territory, it could reach any part of the American homeland. We know almost 100%, not quite, but almost 100%, that Iran has all the components for a Hwasong-15. The only thing we don't know, Brannon, is if they've been able to assemble it, but they almost certainly have, which means President Trump should have gone through that and explained to the American people that the Iranians could land a payload in anybody's backyard. The question is, what kind of payload? We could talk about their possession of enriched uranium. That's another long conversation, which I'll have if you want. But the point is, the North Koreans could ruin everybody's day in America for a very long time. President Trump should have said that. The American people, I think, would have understood it. Just one other quick comment. President Trump doesn't like to talk about how dangerous the world is, but it is. If he were to do that, he would explain why he's doing what he's doing. Instead, he's saying, oh, we're just beating up the Iranians. Well, if you're an American, you're going to say, well, why am I paying $1.25 more for a gallon of gas if this is peacetime and everything is okay? And that's a very legitimate complaint. But Americans would understand that they need to pay $1.25 more if their country is at risk, if their lives are at risk. President Trump needs to say that, then the American people will follow him. If he doesn't say it, then why should anyone follow him? This is a very simple matter for the president. He needs to explain it and communicate it to the American public to explain why we've lost 13 lives and why it is important to prevail in Iran.
I'm so glad to hear you say this, because I've been, my audience knows I've been showing my frustration for the last couple of weeks because I feel like we're being treated like children. We're not being told. Look, 90% of the information is open source. Okay, so you don't want to tell us 10%. Fine. But there's plenty you can tell us, and I don't think we're getting the full story. Now, again, if some of it is economic, hey, we want to carry through with our memorandum of understanding from 2023 on the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. We want to do that. We want to build a canal through the Gaza, the Ben Gurion port. We have all these plans. We're not going to be hijacked by this country, but that's not the only reason. Now, if that's one of the reasons, I say go ahead and tell, because we've been talking about IMEC and some of these things for quite some time. So if there is some financial benefits and development, just be honest and say, these are the issues, because I've been telling my audience, he's telling us things, but I don't think it's the full list. How many issues are on the table here, and then put them in the priority?
Yeah, let me give you an example about our government not telling us. So, for instance, we know that last month there were these drones that flew over McGuire Air Force Base, MacDill Air Force Base, Barksdale Air Force Base, and Fort McNair. These drones were large. They obviously weren't hobbyists. They were unjammable. And the federal government has said virtually nothing about this. I think that they should be saying that this poses a mortal danger to American bases on the homeland. We know what the Ukrainians did on June 1, 2025, when they took out a substantial portion of Russia's long-range bomber fleet through drones that were smuggled into Russia. Well, right now, it appears that it's whoever was flying these drones, and it's probably the Chinese, can do the same to the American homeland. Now, the FBI or the President of the United States needs to say to the American public, if you see something about this, if you know where those drones were launched, if you know where those drones were recovered, tell us. because we need to know. Now, the FBI and the president don't want to scare us, but I think we really do need to know, because the FBI and the Air Force and the Army and the president, they need our help to figure out where these drones came from, because they do pose a really important threat to our military on our own soil.
Well said. Now, let's go back to the enrichment. Now, do you believe, like the late Dr. Pry said, he thinks they've already had one or two or more nuclear weapons already? Do you believe that to be the case?
I believe that is entirely possible. What we have been told by the administration is that in the run-up to the war, the Iranians told Steve Witkoff, President Trump's envoy, that there was 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. There are no peaceful uses for 60% enriched uranium. Now, to get to 60% is not bomb grade, but bomb grade is 90 or so. To get from 60 to 90 is maybe 10 days of use in the centrifuges. In other words, they're very, very close. That could produce about 11 devices. But what we don't know, and maybe the administration doesn't know itself, is do they have enriched uranium up to 90% stored someplace? And the administration doesn't know whether the Iranians actually have those suitcase Soviet nukes that people keep on talking about. Completely unconfirmed. But there is not an insubstantial possibility that those Soviet suitcase nukes are loose, and they could very well have been possessed by the Iranian regime. I would love to know what our government says about them. But of course, there's crickets. So yes, I do believe that the Iranian regime may have, at this moment, a nuclear device. As I mentioned, they also probably are able to assemble a missile that can hit the United States. So this is a much more grave situation than the president is willing to let on.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think Trump is a great communicator for certain things, but on other things, he is not a good communicator at all. And when it comes to these issues of grave national security, he just can't do the simple stuff. It is very simple to talk to the American people about this. But for some reason, he can't admit that the situation has deteriorated to that point because he's president and he probably thinks people will blame him. No, people should blame his predecessors for kicking the can down the road and not dealing with the Iranian regime when they could have. And they should start with a guy named George W. Bush, and maybe even before that. So, yeah, President Trump has a great case. He's just not willing to make it. And if he's not willing to make it, he's going to lose some political support. He loses the political support, he's going to lose the midterms. He loses the midterms, his last 2 years are misery for him.
Yeah, indeed they are. Pakistan, we've seen what their defense minister came out and said about Israel and, burning the Jews of Europe and them burning in hell and all this anti-Semitic stuff. We got problems with what's going on with Spain toward Israel. And it just seems as this is going global, more and more nations saying things you just wish their leaders would not say or even believe, much less say. And then you look at Pakistan, and now Pakistan is supposed to be some kind of balanced player here for negotiating a ceasefire with Iran. Not after the defense minister said what he did that's come out that we're now finding out about. But one of our broadcast partners was reminding us Pakistan, I guess, has 170 nuclear weapons, right? So
something on that order, yeah.
At what point do we have to be concerned with some of these nations passing this off to these kind of nuclear weapons off to Iran?
Well, Pakistan, this is not a theoretical concern because Dr. A.Q. Khan, Pakistani, was the head of a nuclear black market ring that really was a front for China. And what he was selling to the Iranians, the Libyans, the Iraqis, and maybe others were centrifuges and plans for nuclear devices. And a guy named Bill Clinton, by the way, knew all about this and did not stop it. So there's somebody else that the American people should be absolutely outraged at. Pakistan has been merchandising, or until the United States put it out of business, been merchandising Chinese technology. And so that's the other one thing, is that they've been behind the terrorist attacks in Pakistan, and they've been getting Chinese support for that. That boiled over into a 4-day war last May, including other wars in the past. So that's also a volatile situation.
With the reports of all these well-known business people building bunkers and putting bunkers underground, what do you think they know? What are they getting ready for? Are they worried about what you and I have talked about, civil war in the country, or World War III in the country, bombings in the country, bioweapons? Now you add in the conversation we're having tonight, which is a nuclear strike. Why do you think some of these people, some of them are on the left, are building bunkers?
Well, because they know that things are they got the money and they can do it. And here's another reason. I'm 95, 99% sure that China has a third biological weapons facility on American soil. We found 2, but we only found 2, by the way, because you had ordinary citizens who exercised a little bit of common sense. We had the building inspector in Reedley, California in December 2022, who saw a garden hose attached to a building that was supposedly abandoned. She found a secret Chinese biological weapons lab. And then this year, we had a housekeeper in Las Vegas who was noticing that she herself and other people in a home were getting deathly ill. So she tipped off the authorities. Now, what they found in Las Vegas could not have been manufactured in Reedley, California, which means that there is almost certainly a third Chinese biological weapons facility in the United States. And again, the FBI should be talking to the American public about this and saying, look, if you know of anything, please get in touch with us, tip us off. Because, the FBI probably doesn't want to panic people, but we should know about this. We're adults. We're Americans. They work for us. They're there to protect us, and they're not protecting us right now. And people should be furious at the FBI about this, in addition to other federal law enforcement and other federal officials. I just don't know what to say.
Let's talk about China's role in what's happening with Iran. You and I, in our last conversation, talked about that China's fighting a proxy war with the U.S. through Iran. And now we have the Strait's not open. I guess they're letting in a few ships.
A few Chinese ships.
Mostly Chinese and Iranian ships and friends of theirs, right? Are they charging them the toll, you think?
They probably are.
Are they really? Wow.
Yeah. Just to sum up what we talked about in the past, China's been providing everything to Iran to fight this war, except for soldiers, sailors, and airmen. But apart from that, China is fully supporting Iran. What's new since we last talked is right now, the Strait of Hormuz is supposed to be open. The only ships are getting through, or very few of them, by the way, are those that are paying a toll in Chinese currency. And about a week before that, let's say 10 days or so ago, Iran announced it would let ships through the strait if the cargoes had been paid for by the owners in Chinese currency. So this is an attack on the dollar. Why would the Iranians do this? They wouldn't do this on their own. This is not something that helps them. This is because China has demanded, I'm sure, that the Iranians do this, because this helps the Chinese. So, this is just obvious. And
didn't I just hear China came out this week and said they want the yuan to be the world reserve currency?
Well, they've been saying that forever. Okay. And they really can't do that because the currency is not convertible. And that's a 15-minute conversation. But the point here is that the only way that the Chinese can attack the dollar is with our permission. And so far, we've been giving it. Why we are letting ships through the Strait of Hormuz that have paid toll in Chinese currency is beyond me. We can actually bring this war to a successful conclusion. We don't need boots on the ground. All we need to do is something which is really common sense. And that is to say, if we want the Strait of Hormuz open, we have to close it first. Because right now, our friends' ships, our ships, they're not getting through. The only ships that are getting through are those with Iran's permission, which means Iran is getting $2 million or so in renminbi in each ship that passes. So we've got a Navy. We have a Navy which dominates the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean. We should just stop every ship that's paid that toll and seize it and saying, we're not putting up with this. If you don't let our ships through, we're not letting your ships through. We'll starve the Iranian regime. No money for Iran means no war against the United States. That means that regime has to submit or die. And this is a very simple thing. We don't need Marines on Karg Island. We don't need Marines on the Strait of Hormuz. We don't even need to put our ships in the Strait of Hormuz where they're in danger. We just need to put them out on the Gulf of Oman, Indian Ocean, and just seize these ships coming to and from the Strait of Hormuz because they are paying the toll. And that's just unacceptable.
What about China's economy? What's the latest since our last conversation? Isn't Xi Jinping introducing some kind of policy for high quality development there in China?
Yes, well, that's been his mantra for quite some time. He's been repeating it more often recently. This high quality development is basically high tech, but it's a very small part of the Chinese economy. It constitutes maybe 6% of gross domestic product. This is a nice slogan. A lot of people in the West buy it, but it's not really that important. China right now has got a problem because there is an oil shock. And that oil shock has really changed what's going on in China right now. Diesel prices are especially important because the economy runs on diesel, and diesel prices have been going up by double digits. So right now, China is in trouble because it needs to manufacture, needs to export, and its export prices are going up because the price of oil is going up.
And then in closing, talk to me about the fact that we now are banning certain routers coming into the U.S., different equipment. China, I'm guessing, has just been exploiting all of this and sucking up a lot of our data, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just sucking up data. That's really bad enough. It's those equipment that China has, they can control them remotely, which means they can shut down our grid, or at least portions of it. They can do all sorts of things remotely. So if you're in a car, and fortunately, the Biden administration in January 2025 and the Trump administration in the last couple hours have been imposing these rules now on connected cars. They're called connected cars, connected vehicles. And basically, you just can't drive one of those you can't sell one of those in our country. So that's really important because if you're in a car which is made in China, connected to the Chinese system, they can drive you off the cliff, or into a lake or into oncoming traffic. So, bravo to Biden, bravo to Trump for making sure that China doesn't sell those cars in our country.
Let's go here. Here it is, at Gordon G. Chang. If you'd like to follow him, there's his X account, at Gordon G. Chang. Of course, you should get his book. You could read it in one sitting. Plan Red, China's project to destroy America. And then the coming collapse of China, and China is going to war. And of course, you're still holding to the idea that the next war will be fought on our soil, correct?
Absolutely. It starts on our soil in all probability. They've got the agents, the operatives, the soldiers here. All they need is the go signal.
People need to be vigilant. There's no doubt about it. At Gordon G. Chang, at Gordon G. Chang. Thank you for making time for us tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
Good seeing you. Greet Lydia for me, please.
I certainly will.
Gordon G. Chang checking in. There's his site again. At Gordon G. Chang, you got to put the at or the G in there. You got to put the G in there so you get the right Mr. Chang. So do that, won't you? All right, we come back. We're going to go to Patrick Wood. We're talking about Anthropic, this AI company, and are they offering up a solution for national security problems? And if that's the case, why does the Pentagon seem to be going to war with them? We'll ask Patrick Wood about that. And what about losing jobs to AI? Of course, people are going to lose some jobs, but haven't we seen technology cause people to lose jobs? Like, as I'll explain tonight, people that wash clothes with a washing board. What happened to all those people that were hired to wash clothes when the washing machine came along? Do we just trust the system of the free market that people will figure out various ways to offer up products and services regardless of the increase in technology or /AI? Let's get into that conversation tonight with our friend Patrick Wood. And then a little bit later, I recorded an interview this afternoon with Navy test pilot and literal rocket scientist Jason Pratt about new pictures from the moon. And I asked him last week, is there any video or pictures of the lunar modules from like Apollo projects there on the moon that we can look at and point to and say, yeah, they went to the moon. There's the evidence. We'll get into all that and more. Thanks for watching. WorldviewFoundation.com is one of the greatest ways to support us. WorldviewFoundation.com. Thanks for doing that. Another way you can support us is by going to worldviewtube.com/vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. Now, late last night, I got to try out some of the new software we've been working on. This is proprietary software that we have spent quite a bit of money building now for well over a year. And last night, I got to try, late last night, some of it out. And hopefully you'll be able to try it out if you're a Vault member next week. I typed in one word, communitarianism. You know, that's big government, big business merging together. And hit return. And what popped up were all of the TV shows, all of the keynote presentations at any of our Worldview conferences. All of those videos popped up, and every one of those videos, there was the discussion of communitarianism. Now, here's the cool part. Some of those videos were like an hour long. You're not going to have to search through the hour to figure out where we talk about it. The software immediately brought it and queued it up. So if it's an hour video and it was discussed at the 31-minute mark, it's queued, ready to go. All you got to do is push play. And then the video below that, same thing. Another video, another presentation, queued up right where we start talking about communitarianism. And the next video, the same, and so on, all the way down the page of everyone that we have on videos talking about communitarianism. I put in another search term, Fabian socialism. Same thing happened. Every time I or someone else talked about Fabian socialism and what it is and explained it, every video going down the line, there was a little description, little transcript on the side, and then every video queued, ready to go. That is all proprietary software we developed. Our IT guy, our IT department developed it. You know how many? Well, it's been over a year, probably close to a year and a half. That is going to be available to you as Vault members very soon now. And it's not only going to search every TV show, it will search every radio show. And then very soon, I get to see the next part, which is you ask it a question, what is Fabian socialism? And it will provide a text answer. Yeah, it's going to provide all the video clips ready to go, already queued up, but it's going to provide a written answer and then tell you where that came from. It came from one of Brian's radio shows, and here's the date of it. It came from one of his books. So I went on and I put into quotes, Agenda 21, because I didn't want it to grab the word agenda or 21, so I put quotes in, so it grabbed that, Agenda 21. And every time we talked about Agenda 21, which ties to global governance, the UN, every video, boom, 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 already queued, we're ready to go, where we were talking about it. Put it in quotes. How do we know the Bible's true? Every time we talked about how we know the Bible's true, it brought up every video. Do you realize the amount of research you're going to be able to do? Getting questions answered. Getting questions for your kids, your grandkids. This is all a part of the Vault coming probably next week. I had a few things I wanted them to fix so we could release part one this next week. I demoed it last night. I was thoroughly pleased. I asked them to fix a few things I saw. We hope to release that next week. It'll be a part of your Vault membership. And guess what? I have no intention right now of raising the Vault price because I want to keep this affordable for people for education and ministry purposes. So consider joining right now. Get access to 36 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, and so much more. Worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. And we'll be right back with Patrick Wood. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. Check out this headline from The Guardian. U.S. summons bank bosses over cyber risks from Anthropic's latest AI model. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell reportedly attends meeting in Washington following the release. How do you say that? Claude Mythos? Claude? Is just Claude? Oh, I think Claude sounds better. All right, Claude Mythos. And this is today, or yesterday, I don't know, today, Friday, April 10th, 2026. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent summoned major American bank chiefs to a meeting in Washington this week amid concerns over the cyber risk posed by Anthropic's latest AI model. That's according to reports. Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve, was said to have been among those gathered at the Treasury headquarters for the meeting after the release of Claude Myth's AI model, Mythos, I guess I say it, that Anthropic says poses unprecedented cyber risks. The recent leak of Claude's code prompted the startup to publish a blog post at the beginning of the month saying that the AI models had surpassed, quote, all but the most skilled humans at finding and exploiting software vulnerabilities, adding the fallout for economics, public safety, and national security could be severe. Wow. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. Here we go, Patrick. AI can be used, which is really just, again, really powerful computers. I want to go back to that. It's artificial intelligence. It's not artificial. It's not intelligent. It's programs. We've had this stuff since the 70s at least. My dad worked with it, with humongous mainframes in the basement of the Department of Agriculture. I went down there with him once in the basement. It was floor-to-ceiling mainframe computers everywhere in the basement of the Department of Agriculture in downtown D.C. And I couldn't have been more than probably 7 or 8 years old, 9 years old, whatever I was. And, of course, today these now sit on a desktop on someone's desk. But they've always used that kind of system for making projections and models. So, you, my dad, guys of your generation, although you're, I think, younger than my father, but guys in that ballpark, you've said that people need to understand this is not artificial. It's not intelligent. But then again, we do have to understand that way they're programmed, they can seem to start figuring out mathematics and equations and coding. And that is what really, at the end of the day, isn't that what coding is? A lot of zeros and ones, Patrick?
Well, exactly right. And all the headlines on this release, Mythos, they're missing the mark on this. They're pointing the finger at Anthropic because they released the software. They're not trying to hack the world. They're trying to save the world. this is, so there, what the sense of the headlines is, well, there's major cybersecurity risk because Anthropic dropped this release. That's just crazy. It just shows you how much flack that Anthropic has picked up because of their tiff with the military. And at this point, I don't know what Hexus is going to do about Anthropic at this point, because they released this software that could save the military. And the military.
Explain that. What do you mean when you say it could save the military? What do you mean?
Well, what the software can do at this point, it's at risk. There's no risk. It's going to expose every major security risk in the world to software systems, hardware systems, routers, you name it. It has that ability at this point. And this is a major breakthrough for cybersecurity, for sure. So when you consider the military is full of holes, every software program at this point is full of holes. The Pentagon, the White House, Congress, all these organizations, the banks, all of a sudden, all their vulnerabilities are going to be made known. They're going to have to spend money to fix them at that point. They don't like that. So all of these unknown holes in security, they're sitting there like a sleeper and waiting for a hacker, a black hat hacker, to get them, find out where they are, and then hack them and steal data for them or disrupt their systems or whatever. Well, okay, so lazy is as lazy does. They're all grousing at this point. Well, you just, unveiled all our security holes. Well, excuse me, you should have fixed them in the first place. What's wrong with you people? So what Anthropic has done, they've created a coalition of major companies, including the banks, to take the software and fix their holes. First, discover where they are, and then fix them with the manual programming, or maybe AI can do it for them at some point. But this could literally secure the internet. This is the big thing.
Now, what about the talk that it could be a real problem for national security, economics, infrastructure, power grid? Do we have to worry about this thing running away and becoming some kind of sci-fi movie? What was that movie? The 2000? Was that the movie where he's talking to in the space to the computer and the computer's closing doors and all that? What was that? Yeah. What was that called? 2000? I don't know. I just know clips from. I never saw the full thing. But do we have to worry about that sci-fi kind of mentality?
Yeah. At this point, Anthropic, I think, is being heads up for the world. They've publicly stated they're not going to release it to the world and like to the public, so the public can't get their hands on it. If they did, that would could be catastrophic. But you can't blame Anthropic for creating this in the first place. And this was it was kind of a major revelation for them when they started testing for security holes. And they discovered, wow, this thing is incredible.
So in other words, we're going to have a hack of our infrastructure, our power grid, our banking system. That's all going to happen from Iran, North Korea, China, Russia, enemies, foreign, domestic, whoever. That's going to happen if we just keep letting all of these holes and all of this critical infrastructure be so vulnerable. So you got to have someone willing to fix it in the free market enterprise system, because the government can't do it, okay? The government doesn't have the motivation to do it. Government workers, while many of them are wonderful workers who do a great job at their job every day, they show up and do what they're supposed to do, but they don't have the profit motive, right? Many of them don't have the profit motive. I mean, you're going to come in, you're going to do your job, you may work some overtime and get some vacation or bank up some vacation hours or whatever, but the motivation has got to be the profit motivation. That's what makes great strides for many people. Not that there aren't some people out there that make great scientific discoveries and whatnot because they are, humanitarians in some sense and just love their job and the science of it and whatnot. I'm not saying putting everybody in the same category, but you have to have usually businesses, entrepreneurs come in. Look, the government has been trying to upgrade the FAA for how many decades? How many decades have they been trying to upgrade the Federal Aviation Administration and the software and everything? And it's still not done after how many dollars have been spent and how many years? Maybe look that up for me, Logan, real quick, if you don't mind. How much has the government spent trying to redo the FAA software? How many decades and how many billions? I'd love to see that figure. But you bring in corporations like this who can solve problems. And again, we're going to get hacked one way or the other if we just let it ride. These guys come in, are trying to develop software to go find all those holes, patch them, and put up the necessary security. So are you going to stand here and bark at the guys that are trying to save the sinking ship, or the guys that put the hole in the ship?
Exactly. Let me just tell you how powerful this is. Logan will know this program called FFmpeg that stands for Fast Forward MPEG. This is a standard in the video and audio industry. It's ubiquitous software. It's embedded in thousands or millions of programs around the world. This is a mainstay of transmission software using codec to stream stuff. It's everywhere. Well, this program has been around for over 16 years.
Wow.
And so it's it's seasoned, it's hardened, you would think, right? And the first iteration of trying to find some holes, they sick Mythos on FFmpeg to see how secure it is. And over the years, this program has been tested over 5 million times without detecting any hole in security. They thought it was absolutely secure. All of a sudden, boom, Mythos and Anthropic found a hole that can be exploited for anybody who gets a hold of it at this point. And boom, so who's going to patch all this? Well, this is, as it turns out, this codec, FFmpeg, is embedded in software systems, other software systems around the world, and virtually any type of audio system, whatever they have, least parts of this system embedded. This is going to be a huge nightmare for people to fix. But nevertheless, Anthropic found the hole, the security and vulnerability, and no wonder they don't want to release this to the public, because it would just absolutely blow the internet up. But these banks that are sitting in this position right now, they're vulnerable. The insurance companies are vulnerable. The government is vulnerable. The military is vulnerable. And that leaves you and me to, where do we stand on this? Somebody has to, fix these programs and make sure that somehow they can be secured. Period.
And I'm not doubting the story. Maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I always like to look at stories and say, okay, who might be manipulating the truth? This could be and I believe it is, a real serious story and a real vulnerability. But never underestimate the politicians, the bureaucrats sitting around the table in the dark room, trying to figure out how to get themselves out of the mess that they or multiple politicians for generations have created. And they're sitting there and they're going, the whole banking system is about to collapse. We're probably just weeks away from a massive collapse. We got this economic war going on over the world. China is dumping the dollar. They're pushing everybody toward the yuan. We've got what's going on in Iran, and they're pushing more and more people away from the dollar and trading in the currency of their choice through the Strait. You know, we've got all kinds of problems with derivatives and just one mess after another. We're headed for we got massive inflation. The numbers are showing that today. And you could add in all the different scenarios of why the economy's in big trouble. So they're sitting around a table trying to figure out, how do we spin this to our advantage? And some dweeb sitting at the end of the desk says, hey, let's blame it on runaway AI software, or that the software was somehow obtained by our enemies and used to destroy our banking system. And now that's the excuse for why we have a collapse and a crisis. And they actually maybe let something go. They let something out. They let something happen because, again, you can't ever let a good crisis go to waste to then usher in the new system. Now, I'm not saying that, but I always look at things that go in the news that are real threats and then ask myself, how could those real threats be utilized for a false flag where the population has already been conditioned that this is a real threat, be it Islam, terrorism, jihad? But how can the powers that be take what is now in the cultural mindset of a realistic threat and then weaponize it to their advantage? Does that ever come into play with you?
It totally. You know, if Anthropic had, well, if it was somebody else other than Anthropic at this point, OpenAI, for instance, or Grok, if they unveil this level of software, they would be hailed as heroes immediately. Mm-hmm. The world would be beating a path to their doorstep to get their hands on it, so that they can secure all of their systems in the world. But not Anthropic.
Why? Why do people dislike Anthropic so much, Pat?
Well, you know, there's no reason to like them, but the military put the stink on them. When they had the tiff with the military, they said to the military, look, you can't use their software for automatic targeting of insurgents. And they said, no, you're not going to use it for killer robots as well. Well, that just absolutely freaked the military out. So you can't do that. You can't tell us how to use your software. And it was already embedded in their license agreements that they were not supposed to do that. They called them on it. They said, you can't do that. And then the military freaked out, said, well, we're going to put the stink on you. We're going to call you a threat to national security, like a terrorist organization. Really? They're an American company run by Americans?
What, was Hegseth behind that too?
Huh?
Was Hegseth behind that as well?
Hegseth was the guy that made that announcement.
Well, doesn't that show you a lot about Hegseth's character?
No kidding. No kidding.
Which, again, I try to be a team player with him. But when I look at his past, not that people can't repent, you know, and have a transformation in their life. I think you could say that about yourself. I could say that about myself. The Apostle Paul could say that about himself. But when I looked at this guy, and I'm sorry, other things that I know maybe are today culturally acceptable, and I'm looking at this guy early on thinking to myself, to me, he's a frat boy. I don't really like this guy. I think this is a very, very bad choice. I don't think I expressed any of that on the television or on camera because I thought, okay, I'm going to not be that guy. I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to let it play out. But I'm telling you, I didn't trust this guy. There are aspects about him I did like. I did. There's some things about him I did like. But I just felt like this guy's just too immature. And he seems like too much of an opportunist, a pragmatist, you know, TV guy that wants to go to the next level and the next level and keep exploiting his career. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not so sure this is the stately guy with the years of wisdom we need as the Secretary of Defense. And now I'm willing to speak because I'm seeing him hang out with nut jobs, in my opinion, like Doug Wilson. And I'm hearing some of the things he's saying to the American people, like victory. We have accomplished all our objectives in Iran. You know that's not true, but you're going to stand there like a typical mouthpiece of the system and tell us that. And then, like all the rest of them, when you get out of that system, you're going to go back to pounding your chest like you're some great patriot against the system. Well, everybody remember that Pete has become a mouthpiece, I think, of the system and knows where his bread is buttered and is probably fighting to keep his job, in my opinion. And now we find out what Patrick's telling us today. And that is not speaking well to his character, is it, Patrick?
Well, yeah, I think that would be a good judgment. But the thing that really bothered me about him was his statement earlier about AI in general and how they've incorporated now Palantir and Grok and all these other systems, excluding Anthropic. And he made the statement, I paraphrase, but he made the statement that AI is going to help us kill our enemies. Flat out just said it. And this is supposed to be a Christian man. Now, if I was the Secretary of Defense, I would be sore displeased if anybody said that. We're gonna have glee to kill all of our enemies because we have AI on our side now. Okay, it's a tool. It's a valid tool to use for the military. I admit that for sure. But where do you get off bragging to the world that you're going to kill your enemies? And at that point, they were unseen enemies, right? Iran wasn't in the picture at that point. Who are the enemies? Well, he just said, and if we have our people and everybody else is not on board with that, they're going to be our enemies at that point. So let's kill all our enemies. This is bad thinking, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think it's only bad thinking, and I agree with you. I think it goes right to his psychosis or to his psychology. I think it goes to the psychology of this guy, right?
Well, this is a seepage of his religious proposition that somehow the world is going to be cleaned up and reformed by him and his cohorts like Doug Wilson, Reconstructionists, right?
Dominionist.
Want to impose a theocracy to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the theocracy has many enemies around the world. Islam's a good one. So what better thing to say in his mind? Well, we have the tool now to kill all of our enemies and right the world so Christ can come back. That's bad theology all the way around.
And sadly, Patrick, that's the kind of thing that's getting put onto you and me as dispensationalists. And I have to keep telling people in private conversations, well, you guys believe this and that. I'm like, no, we do not. Okay. Just because you have some nut jobs out there like Doug Wilson and other people promoting the crazy things they promote, don't put that on us. I don't have the same eschatology or end time belief as Doug Wilson or a lot of these characters. Even some people that want to call themselves, Christian Zionists. Some of them are off the map theologically, eschatology wise. But their behavior, and can I say what I think, in my opinion, theologically, they're sinful, prideful, arrogant, unchristlike attitude and worldview and eschatology is only benefiting Satan and those who follow him, because it's setting up real Christians. And again, I hate to keep quoting my books from 2011 and 2016, but I said, you watch the persecution that's coming to conservative Bible-believing Christians will be fed by the crazies on the right, and then the people also on the right who will say, look how crazy they are. They deserve to be prosecuted. They deserve to be persecuted and prosecuted, right? And the people on the so-called right will be pointing at the people also on the so-called right and giving cover to the left as the government and the left call for the persecution and prosecution of real Christians, because we've been painted with a brush that's dipped in paint. It's not our color. That's not who we are.
Yeah. I've been trying to figure out how we can get ahead of this, the curve, if you will, this criticism that's being leveled at normal evangelical believers like us. Well, I say I think we're pretty normal.
I think we're normal, aren't we, Logan?
How can we head off this craziness that wants to stick on us. Let me give you an example on this. This is a very tangible example for me, because when I was with Anthony Sutton in the 70s and 80s, exposing the works of the Trilateral Commission, we were dogged incessantly by anti-Semites who made it their goal to get close to us, not to criticize us, but to get close to the truth that we were putting out about the Trilateral Commission. And they wanted to make it theirs so that they can blend it with their anti-Semitism and make charges against Israel and Jews around the world. And we fought these people incessantly. They just wouldn't go away. And I look back at that and I see how the devil used their influence to try to get close to us so that they could drag us into their pit, if you will. This same MO is happening right now with multiple fronts. And the anti-Semites are all over the place, and they're making charges that, things like, for instance, technocracy is a Zionist plot. Well, I never said that. Where did they get that idea? Well, they just fished it out of thin air. But when they take technocracy and they blend it in with their theology, all of a sudden it paints me as being the perpetrator of the whole thing in the first place. It's very clever how the devil does this. Yeah. We see this with these other not evangelical, but alternative Christian movements like Doug Wilson and the Reconstructionist movement, the Dominionist movement. We see all of these people, they're claiming that their version of Christianity is true, and anybody else who disagrees with them are the enemy. That leaves us. It's the enemy. You know, this is something that hopefully we can get ahead of it and shunt it a little bit, deflect it. But it's not fair, obviously. And I think some people can see through it immediately, but many people won't. They'll just see the word Christian, and that's the end of it for them. Wow. They won't see anything other than, they're Christians. Mm-hmm. They're all crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, I don't even know if I want to show this. Don't you, the GOP is so filled with weirdos, right? Here's the New York Post. New York Post. Brian Noem told Dominatrix that he wanted to leave Christy Noem to become a trans bimbo. I won't finish the word. That's New York Post. It's everywhere today. And all these people, claiming to be such strong Christians and whatnot. And we find out, again, this is adding to the narrative, okay? This is adding to the narrative of they're all hypocrites, they're all crazy, they're all nut jobs. And of course, then you got Paula White, in my opinion, who confirms this reality, running around like the crazy theological person she is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can see it all lining up.
Yeah, crazy.
I want to go to another.
So in any case, we started out talking about how wonderful it would be to get rid of all the security risks and the security flaws in the world. Anthropics going to probably take the fall. In the end of it, I can see politicians, like you said, if this software gets into the hands of hackers, and they can use it to exploit these other things, you can see the attack turning on Anthropic. You guys released this in the first place. You're to blame for everything. And heaven forbid, in the meantime, there really is a banking hack that hits the banking system big time. They'll immediately blame Anthropic whether they released the software or not.
Yeah. And why did Anthropic not want their software used for warrior robots? Why did they not want it used?
That, you know, some people say, well, they're leftist, you know, they don't want to have you know, robot killing machines running around. I don't know how you would.
So they're probably pacifist. I don't know that being a pacifist doesn't necessarily make you a leftist. A lot of leftists
well, I know it doesn't. Exactly. Now they've let the military use their software up to that point. So they're not anti-military.
Right, exactly. There are some good people that just, for whatever conviction, are pacifist, and I'm not going to argue against their conscience. That's why we have conscientious objectors for people for the military.
I would agree with them that the military should not use AI for automatic killing machines.
All right, let's go to that point, though.
At all.
That's interesting you brought that up, because I was about to go there, actually, because I wanted to ask you. I see these videos of soldiers being killed on the battlefield. We saw one, you know, we've seen many. And the drone, little bitty drone, chasing this lone guy out in a field. And you see his face at the last second. You know, he's trying to shoot it down. And you see his face at the last second, and it blows up. And I mean, it's a huge explosion for such a little bitty device. And again, if people are going to say, well, you know, you're a leftist too now. But I don't know. At some point, we do have laws, right? We have laws for warfare, things you can and cannot do in warfare. And at what point have we crossed the line where we use drones to just blow people up, right? It's one thing if you're on the battlefield and you're shooting and you're going back and forth with what is, you know, the understood rules of combat. But chasing a lone guy around in a field who's posing no existential threat at the moment to someone, and you just blow him up, to me, it just doesn't, that's something I think from a moral dilemma we have to talk about. Am I wrong?
Yes. There's probably the first thing that Anthropic, I think, would object to in that case is if the drone was acting autonomously, like say there's no human involved, the drone was just flying along, minding his business, and it spotted this guy all on its own, figure he's a terrorist, and took him out. That's different than having a human on the joystick somewhere in a control center, and maybe in Washington, D.C., you know, figuring out, hey, that's the guy we want. We want that guy, and I'm going to chase him out and chase him down, and we're going to blow him up with this drone, and somebody's going to pull a trigger, if you will, like a rifle has a trigger on it, right? That's different than having an autonomous killing machine, where the machine makes the decisions to kill. This is what Anthropic was objecting to, not using it even necessarily for targeting or, you know, figure out the battlefield or logistics, but to convert it to automatic killing machines. And at this point, you have to figure, is AI that powerful that it could inhabit a drone to identify somebody, features like facial recognition or their gait or whatever, to figure out who's who? I think it's this powerful at this point. If Mythos is any example, they can find a bug that's been hiding for 16 years in a software program that's used all over the world to transmit video and audio codecs. I think it probably could do the job.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Let me switch to another topic real quick. This is over at your website, technocracy.news, technocracy.news. Here's the headline. Mr. Tech optimist Mark Andreessen calls AI job loss fears all fake. Now, I'm no fan of Mark Andreessen. And I wouldn't say all job losses fears are fake. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not apologizing. We got AI doing the work of about 6 or 7 people here, okay? And we didn't take really anybody's job because there was no budget to hire those 6 or 7 people. So nobody lost a job, okay? There was no budget to hire those 6 or 7 people. We added to our productivity and the amount of content we can crank out because of the AI. So it didn't take anyone's job. It just added to the amount of services that we're able to give to our audience by helping us pick titles quickly, organizing stuff, finding stuff, cutting up clips for us. There's all kinds of things these guys are using in that control room that is making it so they don't have to sit there and manually do it. And they can go do something else while that does that. And they've got it doing things in the background that I would have to go hire 6 or 7 people to be that productive, produce this much content, but there's no budget to hire those 6 or 7 people. So nobody lost a job. We just were able to be more productive and offer more services to our audience. And I was watching a movie with my wife the other night, and someone was washing clothes with a, what do you call it, a drum or, container filled with water, big old bucket filled with water, long, narrow bucket, and a washboard, leaning against the side of the bucket. And they had this soap up there in the little shelf of the washboard. And they took the clothes and they rubbed the soap on the clothes, and then they rubbed the soap on the washboard, dipped it down the water, and we're washing clothes this way, then hanging it up to dry. And my wife said, can you imagine that that's how you have to wash your clothes? And I said, yeah, people lost their job when the washing machine came along. Now, some people didn't lose their job. They were doing it themselves, and now they don't. The washing machine does it. But I said, did you know that back in part of our country at a time, say, I don't know, 1800s, early 1900s, certainly 1800s. I don't know what year the washing machine came around, but before the washing machine, did you know you could tell, I've read, that someone was very well off, not only because of the quality of their clothes, but because of the cleanliness of their clothes, how clean and pressed their clothes were, because washing clothes and having them look pressed and clean took a full-time person. So you could tell if someone was wealthy, not only by the way they dressed, but the fact that what they were wearing was clean. Now, you can go buy a nice suit. The question is, can you keep it clean? And it's going to take someone to clean that suit. And so you had to hire someone to do that for you. And some of these people, that's what they had. They had a full-time person that took care of their wardrobe and cleaning and washing and pressing it and keeping their clothes so they were in great condition. And that was a sign of outward wealth. Today, people may drive a fancy car to try to show they have wealth, although it could be completely manufactured and on credit. But back in the day, that was someone's job. Now, when the washing machine came along and electric iron and all this, people started losing jobs because now the housewife can do that, throw it in there and go out and do something else, come back in, throw it in the dryer. And I said to my wife, all these people are running around complaining they're going to lose jobs by AI. Hasn't technology always been accused of that? All these people that wash clothes, they've just lost their job. All these people that do this, because of technology, it's available now, they're going to lose their job. I said, this has been the story of the ages. The question is, the smart ones, the innovative ones, the entrepreneurs, the people that look around and say, the landscape has changed, but there's always going to be a need for some kind of service or product. What product can I develop? What service can I offer? I don't care how advanced AI gets. I don't care how advanced robots get. The entrepreneurs and the diligent will find a way to survive. They always have. Do you agree with me?
Sort of. Andreessen is what they call a tech optimist. That's a label at this point. It's a thing. And in the face, he made this statement in the face of all these tech companies cutting back their workforce. And they're saying it's partly due to AI. Now, these are bright people, the middle management and the programmers, the staff, the most of them are the geniuses. And they're going to be out of work. Amazon laid off, I can't remember how many, but thousands and thousands of people. Block was another company that just let go a bunch of their programmers, like 25% of them, because of AI, they said. And I think AI is cutting into those jobs because it can write code now better than most humans can. So this is the backdrop against his statements, and you know, basically tell it to the people that just got fired. They just got their pink slip yesterday. They're not happy to hear him say stuff. Well, it's all in your head. You know, it's all fake news. It's not going to happen. And he says, well, AI is going to explode the market, and there's going to be tons of jobs in the future, et cetera, et cetera. But then you look at stuff he said last year. And this is a direct quote from his own lips. He says, "A world in which human wages crash from AI logically, necessarily, is a world in which productivity growth goes through the roof and prices for goods and services crash to near zero."
Now, that part I don't believe. I don't believe that part. Do you?
It doesn't make any sense at all. You know, how can you crash wages and say that's good for workers? It doesn't make.
But I don't believe that goods and services are going to come down and crash, and we have this massive depreciation in goods and services. I don't believe that.
I don't believe it either. But this is his mindset at this point. He's being the tech optimist, and this is what he thinks. It's somehow the goods and services, the price of all the stuff is going to go to near zero. Somehow the wages in America are going to be crashed, probably, you know, maybe 95% down from where they are right now. This isn't an economic system at that point that you can even call an economic system. There'd be no economic system if wages are crashed to near zero and prices of things go to near zero as well. That's what he says. This is the age of abundance, he said. Elon Musk has said the same thing. Sam Altman has said the same thing. The age of abundance is upon us. What does that mean? That, you know, are these people talking out of both sides of their mouth, or do they mean something different and we just don't get it? I think we kind of got the idea here that, you know, it's not what we've seen.
In closing, though, I'm not worried about the future for myself or you, because we are always going to have an audience that wants to hear biblical worldview and scripture in context. They're not going to hear it from a computer or AI. They're going to want to hear it from a human being proclaiming, "Thus saith the Lord," and bringing things into context, right? And having that relationship with a real human who tells stories, who interacts with them as we do. I'm not worried about our job. I'm not worried about our job. I'm not even worried about the guys in the control room, because what we're seeing is that as the technology increases, the team I have is just able to do more. But you're still going to have overseers and administrators and programmers and people overseeing what's happening. I don't care how advanced the technology gets. You're going to have humans overseeing things. So I'm not all that worried about myself or the guys in the control room. Now, as far as other people out in the world, I can't speak to them. I don't know what occupation they're in. But I do believe most people can choose to either go into new training, become engineers, I mean, if you're going to have all these robots, someone's going to have to repair them, check on them, replace chips in them, whatever, right? There's always going to be, with the new technology, new jobs that come with that technology, right?
Undoubtedly, there will be. Some new jobs, there will be. Absolutely.
Not saying it won't cause some people to lose their job, not saying that. But this has been the case through history. The washers who were washing with a scrub board, a washboard, and bucket, they lost their jobs when washing machines came along. Okay, and we could give many examples where people that were doing things lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their jobs in the field when the machinery came along for picking cotton and other things, right?
Yeah. And even now, the farmers don't have nearly the employees they did, or workers that they had even 5 years ago.
And yet they're having a hard time surviving.
They are, because probably because the capital that they need for all the technology. It's expensive stuff.
Equipment is so expensive.
You pay for it once, and then you use it over a long period of time.
Mm-hmm. But now the fertilizer has risen. The price has risen so high on nitrogen and other things. The fertilizer, the fuel, there's the insurance, right? Now, can you imagine if they had to pay people in the field doing all this? They'd go belly up. That's what I'm saying. People complain about the technology that takes jobs, but we have to live with that in a free market system and understand that the system, the market, will work itself out. And there'll be winners and there'll be losers. But the winners are generally those who are conscientious, hardworking, thoughtful, discerning people that find a way through it, right? If you're not a thinker, if you're lazy, if you're not willing to try new things or do new things or do multiple things, then I don't feel sorry for you, okay? I know people that have more degrees than a thermometer, but they can hardly make a living. And I have said to my kids, one of the things you have to be willing to do is do things others won't do, right? When I got out of high school, I started a commercial cleaning company because I was needing a job. And I wanted to work for myself on my own hours where I could work on my books, write my books, do the research, get my first book published, and travel when I had bookings to go and speak and do concerts. And I did that because I wanted my own schedule. I wanted to work for myself. And I knew I could do better working for myself than going and getting an hourly job somewhere. So I started a commercial cleaning company. And I did things in that job that most people today, a lot of people today, would not do. They're above this. I got all these degrees. I'm like, well, good for you, but you're starving. So you may have to go in and get your hands dirty and do some things that are a little beneath you, so you think. But you do these things because you have an ultimate goal and a dream, and you need capital for the next leg. You can do things that you don't always expect to do your whole life. It's a time period to get the capital you need and build your resume or training or education or skill set. In my case, it was to get the research done, write the books, get the first book published, the second book published by a publisher. I did my first book myself, and the second book was a publisher, third book publisher, fourth book publisher. Then I started my own publishing, Mark, because I figured out how it worked. I'm like, I'm not giving them all the profits. But I started out doing things that most my peers would have never done in a commercial cleaning business. But I had a goal. And then, even after I was out traveling, I was selling telecommunications. Melissa and I were married in 91. Around 1995, I had built up selling telecommunications when people had phones and long distance. I had built up and was making $5,000 a month as my side gig from the commissions on all the telecommunication contracts I had sold. And I got residual every month on that. And I took that money to build what eventually became this organization. That became some of the capital. And then I was even painting houses on the weekend. I was doing all kinds of things. Then I started an outdoor concert series for 12 years and had corporate sponsors. I have done 3 or 4 things even to this day, I do things outside this network. And the point I'm trying to make is to all these people running around worried and wringing their hands, you know what? It was not uncommon that our grandparents and great-grandparents had 2, 3, 4 income streams. And I don't know where people got the idea that you could have one income stream and make all your money from one income stream. Now, if that's what people want to do, that's free choice. But we need to go back to understanding how our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-great-grandfathers, and a lot of them did it by doing more than one job and one income stream. And if that's what's going to take for the future to survive, the people that will survive will be the people that figure it out. And I'm sorry, that's the way the free market system works. Comment?
I have great faith in the free market economic system.
Yes.
I always have. I understand what Adam Smith called this unseen hand in the economy that balances things out over time. And I know if left to itself, if there was no other threat to our free economic system, we would work it out in time. The biggest threat, however, is with technocracy that wants to topple our free market system altogether, that would make it impossible for us to recover from. So that's a threat that's existential vis-a-vis the free market system that we have today. If we just leave it alone, I think it would recover just fine over time. But this is a major threat. Technocracy wants to basically scuttle the free market economic system that we've all lived on for all these years.
Well said. Technocracy.news. Let me go there and show his website. There it is. Technocracy.news. You can pick up all kinds of, go to the headline page. You'll see it all there. Technocracy.news. Now look at that. That's got to be AI, right? That AI had to build that right there for you, did it not?
The picture, graphic? Maybe I just somebody else did for me, and looks like an AI picture.
Of course it is.
Just colored me, maybe just colored. I don't know.
Well, we use all kinds of AI to build graphics. Logan, don't
guys, you're masters of it for sure.
Logan and the boys in there are really good at it. Let me go to worldviewtimes.com. I mean, these guys are cranking out graphics for me nonstop for my Sunday night Bible study and everything else. And you go to worldviewtimes.com. There it is. Look, that's all AI. They tell the AI what they want. It builds it. We throw it up there, right? And guess what? My graphic artist, Jeb, you're in there, right, Jeb? Jeb's got his earphones on. He's post-editing television. Jeb, we're talking about AI stealing people's job. You went to school for graphics, right? For a little bit. Do you feel ripped off and gypped and undermined because AI is doing a lot of graphic work or not? It changed his course of action. Look at that. And how did you change your course of action? What did you learn to do, Jeb? Now he's learning to use AI in his job, and he's also learned television production because that's what he had his earbuds in, doing TV production. By the way, don't be using those earbuds. They're going to fry your brain. Get something with cords on it. He's doing TV. He learned to do television post-editing. We're like, we can do the graphic work like this, boy. We don't need you sitting there doing it. You can use AI to do it, crank it out fast, wham, bam, you're done. Let's teach him TV editing, and now he's working on Brainwashed America Part 3, post-editing that for me. So what he did is he used AI in his chosen field of graphics to do more faster, but then you learn more skill sets. And he's doing more. In other words, you have not missed a meal because of AI, have you, Jeb? He's just gotten faster. He said, no, I've just gotten faster. Exactly. So he's learned to adapt, but he also had to learn a new skill set to go with it. He's like, okay, I better learn TV editing too here. And he can work as many hours as he wants. So that's a perfect example. Yeah, but all that, those boys are in there doing that, all that graphic work. And I think it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Indeed. Technocracy.news, technocracy.news. Thank you, Patrick.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back, guys.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Joining me now is rocket scientist Jason Pratt. Jason, welcome back to the broadcast. One of my friends texted me the other day after our hour together with the launch of the Artemis 2 mission and said, one of the best programs ever, 3 exclamation points. They loved all the science and the history and the information. Got a lot of great feedback, not just from him, but others as well. But here we are. Now, we're pre-recording this on Friday afternoon. We're going to assume that the reentry was good. Everything was fine. I am seeing, though, that some of the media are like, dangerous reentry. And I'm thinking, well, I think they're just hyping it maybe to get viewership. I mean, we've done this enough at this point. I'm not too worried about the guys and reentry and the heat shields and all. Are you?
No, not really. We've had the Artemis 1 capsule re-enter, and we also had the EFT mission before Artemis that launched on a Delta IV Heavy. I was actually at that launch, and I got to inspect the capsule after it came back. It kind of landed the same location off the coast of San Diego, was picked up by a naval ship and returned to the Cape. And it was pretty much very heavily disassembled. They looked at wiring inside and the heat shield and everything, just to see how everything performed and make sure that the thermal protection systems were properly designed and behaved appropriately. So there's a lot of data now, and all the manned missions that we've had return to Earth, from Space Shuttle and Soyuz and all the way back to Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, all the Space Shuttle missions. We understand it. Now, coming back from the moon, though, is a little different because it's been accelerating since it left moon. It was essentially at a high velocity and what we call delta V in space terminology for the velocity that's changing. It's kind of constantly changing when you're in orbit. So that's why we call it delta V. But it was going very quickly and then constantly slowing down as it approached the moon so that it would be slow enough to get captured and influenced by the moon's gravity, and then come back around and slingshot off the moon. And since that point, it's been accelerating constantly to get back to Earth, and then it enters Earth's gravitational pull, and which is also accelerating it. So it's going a bit faster than most of our spacecraft that have returned from low Earth orbit, like the Dragon capsules, the Starliner that came back empty, Space Shuttle, and many of these other spacecraft. So they are coming back quite fast, over 25,000 miles per hour, which is just over Mach 30. So it's coming back at a very high rate of speed.
Well, let's talk about the pictures. Now, we were saying the other day, are we going to get better pictures than we've ever had? I mean, the cameras are better. I mean, again, I don't know if the satellites up there have been taking pictures for a long time, and so it's no big deal. But you tell me, are satellites going around on the dark side taking high resolution photos? Are we ending up with photos that are better than ever from this mission or not?
In some respects, it's, they were outside of 3,000 miles when they came around the moon. So between about 6,000 and 3,000 miles, outside of 3,000, actually. I didn't follow up to see what the minimum approach was, but they had very good cameras, and you had human observers that were able to look, and they had a planned out mission. That being said, we've had the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter in orbit since 2009, so it's been taking pictures and mapping the moon surface for the last 17 years, taking multispectral images and as well as visual images. It's been mapping out the Apollo landing locations to see what they look like today, as well as several of the command modules were basically crashed into the moon to take seismic measurements. They wanted to see those crash sites. So you can go online, and they have a great website NASA does for the LRO, and see what it looks like. But there's they did get some really good photos of some specific things. They're looking at potential future landing sites and looking at what the geography is there, the topography, and a few other key craters and other aspects of the moon that they wanted to look at intently. So that did provide some pretty great photographs, and they're still providing them. They're still bringing them. You know, you don't get quite the spectacular Earthrise because the LRO isn't really situated for that. So approaching the moon at the distance it was, going around the backside, and being able to see kind of the Earth set and the Earthrise was pretty cool.
Yeah, indeed. Let's go to this image. And by the way, we're gonna address the question I asked the other day. Can we see where past lunar modules have landed on the moon? Can we see those? Because all the people say, we didn't go there, we didn't go there. Well, shouldn't we, with telescopes and whatnot today, and of course any of these pictures that are coming in, should we be able to see some of the lunar modules still sitting there? That is a question we're going to answer and bring you some video footage here in just 1 second. So stay tuned. Let's take a look at this new picture you've just sent. This is from the mission, correct?
No, this is more, I wanted to just show what the moon looks like to observers on Earth. This is the bulk of what we can see from the northern hemisphere. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, you can see the mares, right? That's Latin for sea. So like mare imbrium is sea of rain. Down in the lower right there, at about the 3 o'clock position. Middle is mare tranquillitatis, which is the Sea of Tranquility, where Apollo 11 landed, and they did their walk there. And then if you look at about the 9 o'clock position, if you zoom in there, you've got a orange kind of highlighted part that's a crater. So yeah, you got Copernicus, then you got Kepler, and then a little more to the left, the Gremillion crater. That is about the point at which a lot of the pictures that you see coming back from the Artemis 2 mission, you will be able to see that very prominent crater. And they were looking at several other craters on that side. So from our perspective, the eastern, from the lunar's compass, it would be the western side of the moon. And they went around that side. So, you know, from the screen looking on the left side, the Artemis approach from the left side went around from left to right and came back, coming back towards Earth from the right side. So that was kind of their trajectory, and the items they were looking at, particularly just on the just beyond view on the western part of the moon, the lunar surface, is what they were focusing on from that crater Gremillion and beyond. And yeah, you can just see the lunar surface on the dark side is much more exposed to asteroids, meteorites, and other orbital debris just coming in and impacting the moon. And so it's much more pockmarked, much more craterized than the side that we can necessarily see, even as many craters as there are on that.
Let's go to that issue of, can we see the lunar modules from past Apollo missions? Here's a little video you sent me. We'll watch and play this. Here we go.
It's the clearest image we have ever taken of the Apollo 11 landing site since Neil and Buzz left more than 55 years ago. And what it reveals is unmistakable. You can see the descent stage, the laser-ranging retroreflector that is still functional today, the seismometer and the TV camera that filmed the astronauts as they launched back into space. You can even see the faint path they walked for the brief time they were exploring there. And if you look at the later landing sites, like Apollo 17 for example, you will see that the confidence of the astronauts was far greater, as they travelled farther away from the lander in their lunar rovers, leaving their tracks forever etched in the lunar dust. These are not reconstructions, not artist impressions, but real photographs. So how did we get these incredible images? Well, in 2009, NASA launched the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO, a spacecraft designed to map the moon in extraordinary detail. Rather than observing from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, LRO orbits as low as 20 kilometers above the lunar surface. From that distance, its cameras can resolve features less than a meter across. And for the first time since the Apollo era, humanity saw all of the landing sites again. So if we ever want to see these landing sites in far greater detail, there's only one way to do it. We have to go back. But when you look up at the moon tonight, remember, you are looking at a place forever changed by human hands.
That is really fascinating. How come I didn't know this prior to right now? I had no idea. Why is, I mean, this is NASA and space is not my deal. That's your deal. But this is, to me, very fascinating. Why has NASA not made a bigger deal of this? That you can actually see the tracks where they were running around with the lunar little car. I mean, this is exactly what I was asking you the other day. I mean, don't we have pictures of this? And now we find out there's been a satellite going just 12 and a half miles above the surface of the moon. So obviously the pictures are better coming from the satellite that we've had for a while. Again, I don't follow this area, but I sure would have thought I would have, as much news as we track, we would have heard about this. We would have seen the Daily Mail or some news outlet, loves to bring you these fascinating stories, having this as a headline. See the landing sites of all the Apollo missions. We've got the videos now, the pictures now. Logan, have you heard about this? No, none of them have heard about it either. How come?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think NASA could do better in a lot of its promotional things. I think one, what administration was in power at the time, 2009. I think a lot of these previous Apollo missions were around 2011. So again, ask yourself what administration. I can tell you from my military career, there was particular administrations that were not very friendly towards the military or to NASA. In fact, tried to cancel some of the most successful programs and run after fanciful missions that would have been a waste of time or just diversions rather than pursuing fascinating science and pursuing things that are cutting edge and that really get people excited and enthused about being Americans and the exceptionalism that we have brought to world history. So I think there's a big part of that at play here, and that's why you didn't hear too much. I know not well, but I've met and spoken to the NASA administrator who was in charge at the time, and they were pretty well hamstrung.
What's PSEP? It's showing that. I keep trying to move the words out of the way. But
that was the, I don't know what that acronym stands for specifically, but that's the seismometer. You can see the wording there in the closed captioning. So the PSEP is the seismometer that was there, and there's pretty much every mission had that. The reason for the seismometers are for a couple. One is trying to monitor if there is any, we don't think there's tectonic plates, there probably aren't, but there are volcanic, belief that there's some volcanic activity on the moon. So if that's the case, is it still active? Are there moonquakes? And so these seismometers are measuring to determine if that's the case. I haven't looked at the data, so I don't have an answer if there have been moonquakes. But then also when asteroids, meteorites hit the moon, when they crashed some of the lunar modules that the astronauts descended down onto the moon. They got out, walked around, and then got back in and launched back up to get into their command module to return back to Earth in the Apollo capsule. That module then was turned around and fired back to the moon's surface to basically just destroy it, to get it out of the moon's orbit, but also to see what registered on the seismometers. So yeah, that's the science that's going on with those instruments that are.
That is fascinating.
Place, yeah.
That's fascinating. People I saw, people who will say, well, did we really go to the moon? And they start questioning things. Well, we left the cameraman. We left the cameraman behind because we see it blast off and there's someone still filming. Well, this graphic shows you the TV camera they pre-positioned, right?
Yeah, exactly right. They had remote cameras. They put those in place on tripods, and then they kind of had spikes that they could push down into the lunar surface. And they were able to, video them departing the moon. and they left that camera in place and basically radioed the video and the photographs to the capsule.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's fascinating that they also have the, where they were running around with their little buggy. It's pretty incredible.
Yep. And I'll apologize if you hear jet noise. We've got the Blue Angels performing just outside my door right now.
Well, that's just great for you, because I'd like to see that actually. But that's one of the benefits you get from where you live, right? You get to see rockets, the Blue Angels. You guys get a lot of that kind of fun stuff, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's a good spot to be.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to live. Let's go to this one. Moon Interactives. What is this about?
Yeah, this is pretty a great part of that site. This is some of the science that's coming, particularly out of the LRO, that Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and you can see, some of the mapping and the photographs. So it's doing detailed maps of the moon as it goes over. So that's how you could get that 3D rendering and see really very high res photographs of the moon and be able to see it kind of in 3D. And so this allows you to just look and see some of the imagery and other science that's coming back from that. And these are interactive maps, so you can actually click on different things. It'll tell you the lunar location in lunar grid coordinates and what's there as far as some of the geographic and geologic material and some of the features that you're looking at. So very cool site to learn more about the moon. Our moon that orbits. There's so much about it that is absolutely fascinating to just to look into, and you can do your own rocket science, your own astronomical science just by going here and getting a hold of all this fantastic data.
That is amazing. All right, let's see. What else did you send me? Did you send me anything else? Oh yeah, look at that. Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. That's what we were just talking about. That's grabbing all these pictures, right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's what it looks like. And this is the main site for that, where you can see various videos that they put together, as well as the mission, more about the mission, more about the spacecraft, what it's doing. It's still 17 years later. It's still functioning, still collecting great science and imaging. It's in a very stable orbit and able to just provide a wealth of information. I don't know if it was doing anything for this Artemis mission as far as it's focused downward, so I don't think it was looking up at Artemis at all. But really, just a great mission that's continuing to produce some really fantastic data.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's fascinating. Is there anything? Oh, here we go. Explore the moon virtually with these awesome globe maps. What do you make of that?
Yeah, these are fantastic. So like one of the images I showed that you showed earlier, that I think I got that from here. So you can see some of the key features of the moon that are named the craters, the mares, the seas, and some of the mons, which are basically the Earth mountains. And you can really explore the moon and a lot of the features of it. I think it was predominantly all on the near side of the moon, not the far side. But again, a lot of fantastic information to just learn more. There's good videos. You can use these for teaching your kids, for homeschool, or other groups to show, like, do people really understand what does it mean when you have the new moon and the phases of the moon, and what is a waxing crescent to a waxing gibbous to a waning gibbous to a waning crescent? What does that mean? And how about the sidereal motion of the moon? So a lot of these really cool features and graphics and videos are accessible right there.
It's pretty fascinating. All right, let's see. Let me go over to the NASA page real quick, because Twitter, because they've been putting up. Did you find any cool videos, Logan? Well, you guys really are kind of lazy or sleepy or something in there today. What, are you guys tired today or what? I mean, let me go find it. Here we go. You did find some videos? Well, Dolly's not tired. You did find some videos, Logan? You're not at the switcher. You're not at the board, are you, Logan? I can always tell when Logan's not at the board. Now you must be back. Here we go. Look at that. That's from this mission, huh, Jason?
It is, yeah. Yeah, these are some of those great pictures. I mean, they are excellent pictures. And again, with the quality, and right now, most of the data is still up on the Orion capsule. So when the crew gets back tonight and over the next few weeks, they'll be able to download even more of the data. They've transferred the data, over radio frequency to get it to the moon, from the moon back to here. And then they've been processing that and posting it on the NASA website. But again, the real high res stuff that you'll be able to really zoom into and see some very good detail, that's forthcoming. So it'll be very cool to see that.
So we're pre-taping that. Wow, those are really amazing. We're pre-taping this. I'm going to go some video footage. I guess this is when they were doing their third return burn for the Artemis 2 mission. That occurred today at about 2:53 Eastern time. So they're not in their suits or anything yet, are they?
No, they're basically in their astronaut pajamas, or just kind of like their turtlenecks and kind of sweats, if you will.
At what point will they get their suits on?
I'm not sure. There's probably, about an hour or so. They're not terribly comfortable. So, probably an hour or ish prior to getting to the reentry. They've got some of their checklists. They've got to be doing some housekeeping, getting any equipment secured and fastened down. As they're approaching the Earth, they will have several more retro rocket firings to help slow them down, as well as they're approaching and encountering the Earth's atmosphere. The friction from the atmosphere will start to slow the spacecraft down significantly. They're going to feel as much as 4 Gs in deceleration. So that's a decent amount. That's 4 times the force of gravity here on Earth. So that they will go from being weightless to feeling like they're 4 times heavier than they would be on Earth. So
what does that feel like? Like when you go on a roller coaster, you go down a big hill, and you feel like you can feel that you're falling. Do they have the feeling of falling or not?
Once they start feeling the G forces, they do. Like right now, they just have that 0 G sense. So if you've gone over a hill, over a hump, and kind of your stomach kind of goes up a little bit, and your throat, not your throat feels like it goes up a little bit, or on that roller coaster, that's kind of that 0 G, but you just feel it for barely a second. That's kind of how they feel all the time. So some astronauts feel, kind of this microgravity sickness. They feel dizzy. They can have different things. We do some training. They go in what's called the Vomit Comet, which is an aircraft that flies parabolic arcs and gets you the opportunity to experience weightlessness for almost half a minute to a minute.
I've seen those. Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, much of Apollo 13 was filmed actually in that aircraft. That's how they got those really good 0 G shots. So they'll start feeling it once they encounter the Earth's atmosphere and they're decelerating. Then they'll start getting those sensations of what's happening outside their spacecraft and how it's impacting them.
So when they start falling back to Earth, they get their suits on, they get their chairs, they're strapped in, they're falling back to Earth. Do they have that feel the whole time like we do when we're going down a roller coaster hill?
They'll feel it's going to be more abrupt. So they'll have a period of that 4 G deceleration, and then they'll just be falling again. So it'll just feel like they're falling, but then they'll be in the Earth's atmosphere, and then they'll feel the parachutes. There's a total of 11 parachutes that are going to be used to slow them down. And this is fascinating. They're going over 25,000 miles an hour just prior to encountering the Earth's atmosphere. They're going to fire some retro rockets, slow them down. The atmosphere is going to slow them down. And then the parachutes are going to slow them down. So they're going to go from 25,000 miles per hour to just prior to splashing down, they'll be just barely 20 miles per hour. So that's quite the deceleration.
Now I'm going to go back to the falling thing. So are you telling me for several minutes they have that feeling of falling like we do when we go down a roller coaster?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's kind of where they've been existing in that 0 G environment. So like no real forces on them. So they're kind of in a constant state of falling, but it just, for them, that's what weightlessness is. The negative G's that you feel when you're falling, they're not experiencing that. So not experiencing what would be negative G's, where you feel like you're being lifted up in the seat in the roller coaster. So they feel more like if you've done a free fall, they feel that. But again, you only feel that in a ride, like I think Tower of Terror at some of the parks, different things like that, where you get pulled up and then you just drop. That's the feeling of weightlessness that they've been experiencing since they've been on orbit.
All right. Well, like I said, we are pre-recording this. We're going to assume that everything went just fine. They splashed down, but you've got some commitments, and so we had to pre-record. I do want to ask about the toilet. Wasn't that like a $25 million toilet and it didn't even work?
The toilet worked. There were a couple, I guess, features with regard to the toilet. Part of it, I think they had to prime the pump. And so usually the junior astronaut on any mission, their responsibility is for the toilet. So that's just, using it. And I guess a new toilet first, really trying to think, first use for this particular toilet on orbit. So maybe a few growing pains and just learning how to operate the system. But I don't think, from what I've read, it was just kind of a standard, just lesson learned and how to use the equipment.
The same toilets on the International Space Station.
I think this one's a slightly different toilet. Yeah.
But I had read that, but that it had never been used for, I don't know, whatever these conditions are going around the moon. But the good news is the solids part wasn't what was broken. It was for the liquid part.
Right. Yeah, they have different ways of dealing with that. A lot of times they'll wear basically, essentially astronaut diapers to deal with that. They've got other ways of
Not to get too graphic, but how do you in space have a bowel movement if there's no gravity? How do they capture that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And equally,
it's a good question. Exactly.
These biological functions, and again, that's a lot of the science that we learn in going to orbit. A lot of things we learned, from our time being in space. Now we're a spacefaring people. We've been on orbit on the space station now continuously since we first put astronauts on, and learning those things, as well as how to be in space and live in space for extended periods of time, 6 months to a year. And equally important is, how do you swallow, right? There's no gravity, so how do you swallow? So pretty fascinating the way that the human body is designed. A lot of the functions within our esophagus, as well as in our intestines, you have that the peristalsis in the intestines that moves your solid waste through the intestines, and then the contractions. And so that basically provides the motive force to expel your solid wastes, and that's enough in zero G to just get it moving in the right direction, and basically you catch it in a bag and deal with it.
Wow. So are you telling me that when they have a BM, they have to catch it in a bag?
Yeah, that's kind of the preferred method. They can also just be wearing like a diaper. That's how the Apollo astronauts, they basically wore astronaut diapers. I think now, you have the option, whichever's preferable.
But I mean, I would think, again, you've got a problem if you're sitting in that and cleaning up. I mean, how do you do that in a small space? I'm not trying to get too graphic, but how do you do that in a small space and then they got to clean themselves up at some point? They're not going to sit around for 10 days with a poopy diaper, right?
Yeah, they have regular routines. Their missions or calendars are actually extremely scripted, to the point where a lot of your biological functions are pretty well scripted almost. So you go.
So 3 o'clock is you're going to go to the bathroom. It's in the calendar.
Yeah, it can be almost that rigid. When I was on the aircraft carrier before flying, before any mission, usually we had our bodies would just kind of sync up and usually take care of business before we went on a long mission. We have piddle packs in our aircraft to deal with that. But you don't have anything really to deal with the solid. So your body just knows, you just get into this routine, and they're pretty well scripted. And then they have times where they're dealing with hygiene. And so, towelettes, and I don't know if this has a shower, but like the space shuttle had kind of a shower on it. And again, It's a little tricky because the shower, in spraying the water on you, a lot of times the water molecules just glob, become little spheres and they bounce right off you. So it was really hard to get wet. It's very hard to get wet in space. So basically a moist towel is the best way of handling that.
Now, this little capsule that they're in, how big is it? Is it size of a like an SUV? Is it the size of a small RV? How big is it?
Yeah, I'd say it's, about the size of a reasonable van. There's various equipment. There's not a lot of just open space, but there is space to move around, and it's big enough, certainly for 4 to 6, I believe, astronauts to move around, to work, and kind of exist for the mission that they have at hand, to the 10-day mission in this case. So there's room for them to all have their own corner to sleep in. They have their workstations. They have the seats can fold up and out of the way to create a little more room, and then they're going to be getting those unfolded and ready for sitting in for their return.
I think a lot of us, of course you have, you go to the Air and Space Museum in DC or the one out by the Dulles Airport, you can see these capsules that they were in. Those were so small. I mean, some of them were so small, but they were only just going up and coming back and dropping in the Earth. But the Apollo 11 capsules, some of these were pretty stinking small. I was just trying to get a feel for how big this one is, but you're saying the size of a van, 4 people living in what would be the size of like a commercial van?
Yeah, pretty much. There's opportunities. I'm trying to remember if the visitor center here at Kennedy Space Center has. They do have a mock-up. I can't remember if they have one that you can get into. They've got one that you can kind of fly, and it gives you an idea of the kind of the cockpit portion of it. But again, that whole area becomes part of the living space. Yeah, the Apollo capsule, very, very small, very tight. There was room. Again, kind of underneath the panels, the instrument panels that they could use, and they would dock with the lunar module and have that space as well. So they would kind of live in both the capsule and the lunar module. So that gave them just a little more room to move about, and usually they'd have like one in one of them, maybe 2 in the other, and spread out. That'll be the case as well for Orion. They'll be docking eventually with a command module or a lunar lander type craft, and that'll just give them a little more space. So it's reasonably tight, but in the pictures and the videos that you can watch, you can see they can move around a little bit, and they've got a little bit of space. It's a lot better than it was for certainly Apollo. It's probably not quite as big as the space shuttle, though.
Now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that look like it?
Yes. Yeah, you can see the seats, and the seats can kind of move and fold up and kind of be stowed out of the way.
And any idea from the floor to the ceiling, how much room they got?
I don't know. I haven't really paid that much attention. I've been in an engineering mock-up at the factory, but that was primarily looking at various systems, the electronics and the wiring, making sure they could route the wiring in all the right places and keep it out of the way. So it wasn't like, and it was more of an engineering, it looked like a big erector set. So I wasn't sure where the skin of the aircraft or the skin of the spacecraft was going to be.
So you were in this craft at one point?
Not this particular one, but I was in the engineering version of it, the mock-up. And it was for, the displays and all the wiring and the communication systems that they would build in there and be able to operate them and make sure all the systems function properly.
Okay, I was looking for another picture, but some of these images are not working, but I was looking for a few more pictures to look inside. There you go, there's another one. Well, obviously, if they can sit down on the first level and then they sit in the seats in the upper level, so they've got to have at least, I'm guessing, 8 to 10 feet from floor to ceiling.
Yeah, I think it's about a 7 meter. I can't quite recall the when I saw the capsule. This is going back quite a ways, so I looked inside the first one that flew. But yeah, you're looking on that picture. You're kind of looking across the circle of the spacecraft. It is kind of a double decker in that regard. And then the image that was going upward was the top of the capsule. So that'd be looking up towards the point of the capsule, which is where the airlock is for them to be able to dock with another spacecraft and be able to transition and move between the spacecraft.
Mm. Is this, here we go. NASA just got the Orion spacecraft that will fly astronauts around the moon on Artemis 2 in 2026. This is back in May. So this is a picture of it there, obviously, where they moved it out and put it on the rocket, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's before they put the shield, the ascent shield is placed on top of it. So it doesn't quite look like that when it launched, right? It was just a big, looked like a white Hershey kiss. There was a shield over top of the entire thing with the escape tower attached to that as well. And then there was a fairing around that inner stage.
So what are they in right now? What is it? They're in this capsule. They're only in this capsule part, the part below this white ring and then the black solar panels. Is that the whole thing right there, or are they just in this top part where this ring is in the center?
Yeah, they're just in the top part, the ring, as well as the silver up towards the top. So they're in that space. The lower part with the black, those are the solar arrays, as you noted, and then the service module that has some of the fuel tanks and other equipment that's supporting that mission.
So that whole thing is connected right now as they're orbiting.
It is, yeah. And I did send you a video that shows kind of they'll separate from that here shortly. So I think they're expected to touch down sometime around 5 o'clock, I think Pacific time, 8 o'clock Eastern. And so they'll be before they come to the atmosphere, they will jettison that service module and be just the capsule.
And they don't have anything else that they would get into, like, what do they call it, a LEM or something? An Apollo 11?
Right. The LEM was the Lunar Excursion Module. That's what that stood for, the LM. Sometimes they just call it the LM, the Lunar Module. No, they don't. That'll be something in future missions. So that's something that was added, expected to be added for the Artemis 3, is to actually have one of the lunar modules, one of the lunar landers go in orbit and actually practice docking on it and moving between the lunar module or the lunar lander and the Orion space capsule, and get comfortable with just operating those two together and seeing how they interface and get comfortable flying around each other.
All right, you sent me 3 videos. Which one is the one? There's one Orion spacecraft reentry after Artemis 1 mission to the moon, or Artemis 2 to the moon launch to splashdown. Which one is it?
Yeah, anyone. The first one, I think, is actual video from the Artemis 1 mission that was unmanned when it came back. So you can see the video of what the astronauts will be experiencing looking out through one of the windows. You'll hear a bunch of the sounds that they'll hear as far as the spacecraft decelerating. Yeah, if you go full screen on that, it's pretty amazing, and the sound is pretty cool. You can hear the rocket motors firing, and you'll see those. Yeah, like right now you can see the thumps, and you can see the plasma jet that is coming off the spacecraft as it's in the Earth's atmosphere. And then this is a point at which the parachute's deployed. So they have several sets of parachutes. They have drogue parachutes that'll pull out other parachutes. Those will be released, and then they'll have another set of parachutes with drogues that'll eventually slow them down. So they've got 11 total.
And that was Artemis 1, right?
Correct. Yeah, that was actual video footage from the Artemis 1 mission.
And when was that?
Your last chance to disappear.
That was 3 years ago.
And come back unrecognizable. Start the.
Let's see if I can grab the other one as we get ready to wrap here with you. You sent me another one, I know.
Yeah, the next one is kind of the video that shows kind of an animation of what is going to go through Yeah, so if you fast forward this to about 5 minutes and I think it was 42 seconds.
Oh, 5:42?
Preparing humanity for a long-term lunar presence for scientific discovery and exploration.
Yep, right about there.
The 10-day test flight will demonstrate a range of deep space exploration
all right, let's do
capabilities
this.
with crew. The mission.
So you can see there's the service module and the.
Before entering the atmosphere, Orion's crew module separates from the service module. 12 thrusters ensure Orion is properly oriented at an altitude of about 75 miles from Earth's surface. Orion and the crew enter Earth's atmosphere at a speed of nearly 25,000
Let me
miles
just
per
stop
hour.
right there. So it does separate.
Decelerating
It
at a
does
rate
separate, huh?
Correct. Yeah. So it'll leave that service module there, and that service module will go into a disposal orbit.
Okay.
Fahrenheit, about half as hot as the surface of the sun. To slow its descent, Orion begins a precise deployment sequence of 11 parachutes. 3 forward bay cover parachutes first separate the protective thermal cover that sits over the chutes. 2 drogues slow and stabilize the crew module, then cut free. 3 pilot chutes lift the 3 main parachutes, deployed at an altitude of 9,000 feet and traveling 130 miles per hour. These chutes slow the crew module to a speed of less than 20 miles per hour. After traveling more than 595,000 nautical miles, Orion splashes down in the Pacific Ocean, about 50 nautical miles from the California coast, just 16 minutes after entering Earth's atmosphere. After splashdown, a recovery team that includes the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and NASA approaches Orion. The team ensures it's safe for the crew to exit before divers help the astronauts onto an inflatable front porch, hoist them into helicopters, and fly to the recovery ship. Orion is towed into the ship for its return to Kennedy Space Center. Their mission complete, the crew is flown back to land and step on solid ground for the first time in 10 days. This is Artemis 2. Learn more about Artemis at nasa.gov/Artemis.
Fascinating.
There you go.
And of course, that capsule, I guess, at some point will go on display for people to stand and look into it, right? At a museum?
Probably. I would expect it probably to get to a museum if they don't disassemble it like they did the first Orion. And Artemis 1, I don't know what they did with that capsule. That'd be, probably look that up, see what they did with that capsule.
Why would they disassemble it?
Just to study it and see, if there was any damage inside the panels, inside any of the wiring, any other, areas where maybe you can't tell from the outside that parts of the spacecraft skin was compromised in some regard. So they just want to make sure that everything was, stayed in place and operated properly.
Huh. Where is Artemis 1 capsule now? See if I can get that question answered real quick. You guys want to see if you can beat me to the answer in there or not? You're going to beat me, Logan says? It's at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida. After it splashed down in the Pacific Ocean off Baja, California on December 11th, 2022. Did I say that right? Is that Baja, California?
Yep.
The capsule was recovered, transported to the port of San Diego, later used as an environmental test article for further ground testing, including an 11-month campaign in Ohio. What does that mean?
Yes, they would have gone to Dayton, Ohio. There's all kinds of science there. That's where the Air Force's graduate school is, and so they probably did a bunch of testing there.
Okay, and then from there, Logan, you did beat me. It went to the Air and Space Museum in D.C. He just told me in my ear.
All right, there you go.
Well, as early as 2026, it remains at Kennedy for engineering and testing purposes. NASA has plans to loan it to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in D.C.
There is a capsule here. I don't know if I can't remember at the visitor center outside the Kennedy Space Center. they've gotten Orion capsule there. I don't recall if it's a real one or not, or if that's that one, if it's actually the one. It's kind of behind a big plexiglass cover.
Well, I guess it is there now. Logan, you're right. NASA's Artemis 1 moon capsule to land in renovated Smithsonian Gallery in 2026. I think it's already there, right, Logan? Yeah, that was a 2024 article. I think it's already there. Maybe not. When it says the Space Museum in D.C., I wonder if they mean D.C. Air and Space or the one in the National Mall, not the Dulles one.
Yeah, the Dulles one's Udvar Hazy. That's fantastic. It could end up at either one.
Dude, that one's amazing. We have so much video footage from when we were out there a year ago this month.
Yeah.
We haven't even released it yet. We're so busy. We have Logan and I were just talking about that last night. I'm like, Logan, we have hours and hours of video footage we still have to unpack. The space shuttle, we were all over that thing filming.
Yeah.
And we can release a little documentary on that, which we're going to be working on. So, wow, fascinating. All right, anything else you want to add before we let you go?
No, I think that, it'll be exciting. It'll be great to get the crew back. There are dangers involved with it, but again, this is something we've done an awful lot. Coming back from the moon is a little special, but we did that with Artemis 1, and we know how the capsule responds and performs. And Lord willing, it'll perform nominally again and bring everybody back safely. And we'll get all that great video and photograph data out of that, and start moving forward to Artemis 3 and take that next step to going back to the moon and getting boots on the ground.
Absolutely. Jason Pratt, rocket scientist, former atheist, now Christian apologist, Bible teacher, all the above, and still a rocket scientist working for one of the big military defense companies, space companies. Jason Pratt checking in. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Brendan. Great to be here.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. As always, we do need your support to keep pushing it out absolutely free. You're also supporting our Sunday night church service, which is, Lord willing, this Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern Standard at worldviewtube.com, as I continue teaching verse by verse through the book of Daniel. Look at this. This is volume 1 of my commentary on Revelation. There's going to be a 2-volume set, it looks like. This is 412 pages I received printed today, 412 pages. My editor, Jill's she is editing. I got to go through and make sure there's nothing else I want to change, work on any subtitles. And then volume 1 will be out. We'll go right away to working continually on the next part, volume 2. And I hope to release both volume 1 and volume 2 at the same time. Now, if you're a Vault member, all of this will go automatically into the Vault very soon as part of your membership. And then when I'm done teaching on Sunday nights through the book of Daniel, I'm going to turn that into a Bible commentary. And then, Lord willing, I'm going to start teaching on the book of Ezekiel. And we'll turn that into a Bible commentary. But this is it. Volume 1. You know how many pages I'm told this part 1 and part 2 is going to be? Over 1,700 pages. It's a year and a half of teaching verse by verse through the book of Revelation. Volume 1. So that's some reading I have to do this weekend to work on subtitles and breaking the different chapters apart and whatnot. So there you go. Again, Sunday night, we continue the Bible teaching in the book of Daniel. Please support all of this, won't you? So we keep pushing it out for free as ministry. Worldviewfoundation.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Logan, I got to thinking about Banana George and having all those back surgeries and broken neck, right? How do you think he did that, Logan? Yeah, probably water skiing. So, yeah, wow. I don't know at what point you have to say, that was fun, but I don't want to be all stiff and hurting all the time. But Banana George, isn't that something? What an inspiration. All right, guys, I hope we're an inspiration to you each and every night. Till next time at Brennan House. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Welcome. Glad you are with us. We're going to get another update from our reporter on the ground in Israel, Aaron Levarco. And we're also going to talk about what is happening to the American farmer. We have so many farmers that listen to our broadcast. Thanks to VCY America, we are broadcasting where there are a lot of farmers, like Wisconsin and South Dakota and North Dakota and many other such places. And many of our farmers are under great stress right now. And I want to play a clip for you about that. We also have just the incredibly shocking statements coming from the defense minister of Pakistan. Isn't that interesting? We have Pakistan helping to negotiate a ceasefire with Iran. Pakistan, we're told, has 170 nuclear weapons. Kind of like, it almost seems like, yeah, we want you to negotiate a ceasefire with Iran. Or maybe what we'll just do is hand him off some nuclear weapons. Has that been said under the table? Because the defense minister today reportedly, or was it yesterday, there's a time change between us and them, made the comment about Israel is evil and a curse for humanity. Well, peace talks are underway in Islamabad. Genocide is being committed in Lebanon, he says. Innocent civilians are being killed by Israel. First Gaza, then Iran, now Lebanon. Bloodletting continues unabated. I hope and pray people who created this cancerous state of Palestinian land to get rid of European Jews burn in hell. Wow, that's definitely someone we should have working to negotiate a ceasefire between America and Iran, right? It just keeps getting worse and worse, to be honest with you. President Trump has put out, the Iranians don't seem to realize they have no cause